So I want you to imagine just flipping on the television and you're watching an old episode of MTV Cribs.
Oh, I love those. Classic.
Right. So the camera pans up to this 22-year-old kid, and he's standing on the balcony of this sprawling, multi-million-dollar Atlantic beach estate.
Okay. Setting the scene.
Yeah. The ocean waves are crashing in the background. It's gorgeous. And down in the driveway, he's got like a pristine Ferrari, a Lamborghini, and a Rolls Royce all lined up.
Naturally.
Right. And the interviewer is completely awestruck. He sticks a microphone in the kid's face and asks, "Hey, man, this is incredible. How did you afford all this at your age?"
And let me guess, he says he's a crypto billionaire.
No, that's the thing. The kid looks right at the camera, completely deadpan, and says, "Yo, I got rich chilling in mutual funds and maximizing my 401k down at my job at the local cell phone store."
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that immediately triggers a massive psychological record scratch, doesn't it?
Totally.
Because we intuitively know, like without even doing the math on paper, that this scenario is mathematically impossible.
Exactly. It's hilarious because it's just so preposterous.
Right.
But when you strip away the comedy of that image, I mean, that is the exact fundamental financial plan we are all told to follow, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
We're sold this idea that working 50 hours a week for 50 years, obsessively clipping coupons, canceling our streaming subscriptions, and just, praying for an 8% stock market return.
The holy grail of 8%.
Right. We're told that is the ultimate roadmap to financial freedom. But when you look at the actual mechanics of it, it's really just a guaranteed ticket to what the source material we're looking at today calls wealth in a wheelchair.
Which is such a brutal but accurate phrase.
It is. Because we are basically told to trade the absolute best, most vibrant years of our lives, our youth, our energy, our peak physical condition, to a system that promises us a payout only when we are literally too old to fully enjoy it.
And I mean, that's assuming the system even works out in your favor, right? Which is highly dependent on, well, macroeconomic factors that are entirely outside of your control.
Completely out.
Yeah, so we are sold this grand illusion of eventual freedom, but the currency we are forced to use to purchase that freedom is our youth.
It's a raw deal.
It's an incredibly raw deal, but it's so deeply ingrained in our culture. I mean, you see it everywhere. True financial freedom, like the kind of wealth that actually allows for an unconstrained, highly mobile lifestyle, is almost always associated with youth in our minds.
Right.
But the default societal roadmap mathematically guarantees that if you do happen to succeed, you're only going to arrive at that destination in the twilight of your life.
Which I think perfectly sets up the mission for today's deep dive.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, because we are venturing into the core introductory concepts of M.J. DeMarco's highly provocative book, The Millionaire Fastlane. And if you are listening to this right now, you are about to learn exactly why the traditional path of, get rich slow isn't just slightly flawed.
No, it's not a small error.
It's fundamentally and mathematically broken. So we are going to explore how to actually redefine wealth so that it includes your youth and your freedom.
Because that's what people actually want.
Exactly. And we'll break down the crucial, honestly, pretty uncomfortable mindset shifts required to crack the code to rapid wealth accumulation.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, you should really consider this deep dive a complete unlearning process.
Unlearning is the perfect word for it.
Right, because this material challenges just about everything you have been taught by your parents, your teachers, and I mean, certainly mainstream financial planners.
Oh, absolutely.
The author here really operates as an anti-guru. He is advocating for a complete psychological and mathematical rejection of conventional wisdom.
Which is a lot to swallow at first.
It is. The premise is simple but jarring. Basically, if you want a different result than the average person, you have to stop traveling on roads with punitive speed limits.
Okay, so let's actually map out that terrain right now. Because if we're supposed to just, leave the traditional path behind, we first need to understand the roads that are actually available to us.
We need to know the map.
Right. And according to the source material, our economic lives are dictated by 3 distinct financial roadmaps. There's the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane.
Yeah.
And what I found most striking about this isn't just the definition of these roads, but the absolute certainty of where they lead.
Yes. The destination is completely hard-coded into the map itself.
Hard-coded. I like that.
You don't stumble into immense wealth by accident. And conversely, you rarely stumble into long-term poverty by accident either.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
These outcomes are the mathematical result of the map you are currently utilizing.
Okay, let's start with the first map, which is the sidewalk. The text states that the destination of the sidewalk is poorness.
Yes.
But reading through the breakdown, this isn't necessarily the stereotypical image of poverty we might have in our heads, is it?
Far from it, actually. I mean, the defining characteristic of the sidewalk isn't necessarily a low income. It is a profound lack of destination.
A lack of destiny.
Right. The sidewalk is focused entirely on instant gratification. The wealth equation for a sidewalker is incredibly simple and equally toxic. It's basically wealth equals income plus debt.
Wow. Okay, so their entire financial philosophy is simply maximizing their present lifestyle, regardless of whatever the future cost might be. Wealth equals income plus debt.
Exactly. They equate wealth with what they can consume today. You know the mindset life is short, live for the moment, buy the shoes, finance the car.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself, exactly. And the illusion here is what makes the sidewalk so deceptive. Because you can have a massive income.
Like how massive?
Well, you could be a high-earning surgeon making $400,000 a year, or, I don't know, a professional athlete signing a multi-million-dollar contract.
And you could still be on the sidewalk.
Yes, you can still be walking on the sidewalk. The text actually refers to this as riding the sidewalk dirty.
Riding dirty. Because they have scaled their lifestyle up to completely consume that massive income. You know, I've actually looking at statistics recently on how many professional athletes declare bankruptcy within like 5 years of retiring. And it perfectly aligns with this concept.
It's a staggering number, yeah.
They are making literal millions, but their wealth equation is entirely tethered to next month's paycheck and leveraging debt to buy, depreciating assets like luxury cars and massive homes.
Spot on. When your wealth is defined by income and debt, you are incredibly fragile. I mean, think about it. If that income suddenly vanishes...
Which you can at any moment.
Right. If the surgeon develops a hand tremor, or the athlete blows out their knee, or a corporate executive is downsized in some merger, the illusion of wealth evaporates overnight.
Oof, gone.
They are literally one catastrophic event away from insolvency. The house eventually wins because atrocious financial management cannot be out-earned forever.
Great, outrun bad math.
You really can't. The mathematics of debt and consumption will always eventually overtake the mathematics of a linear income.
It's like building this massive, gorgeous mansion directly on a sandbar.
That's a great analogy.
It looks really impressive to everyone walking by on the beach, but the structural integrity is basically non-existent. One bad storm, one shift in the tide, and the entire thing collapses into the ocean.
Exactly.
So eventually, I think a lot of people realize the sidewalk is a pretty terrifying place to be.
Usually after a panic attack or two.
Right. Maybe they have a health scare, or they hit 30 and realize they have zero net worth, and they decide to finally take responsibility. They mature.
They grow up, yeah.
And naturally, they course correct into what society universally heralds as the quote-unquote responsible mature path. They enter the slow lane.
Ah, the slow lane, which is where the vast majority of responsible adults live.
Right.
But the destination of the slow lane is mediocrity.
Ouch.
I know, it's harsh. But it is the universally prescribed path of get rich slow. I mean, the doctrine is pounded into our heads from elementary school, right?
Proto-university.
Get a stable job, save 10% of your paycheck, invest diligently in diversified index funds.
Cut up your credit cards.
Clip those coupons. But if we actually analyze the underlying mechanism of the slow lane, we discover that it is fundamentally a plan reliant entirely on hope.
And relying on hope for your financial survival is terrifying. You are completely outsourcing your economic destiny.
You really are. I mean, in the slow lane, you're hoping your company doesn't lay you off during a recession.
Right.
You're hoping the stock market doesn't experience a massive correction like 3 years before your target retirement date.
Or hope inflation doesn't outpace your conservative little yields.
Exactly. You even have to hope you actually live long enough to access your 401k without a penalty.
That's the darkest part to me.
It is. You are relinquishing all control of your financial vehicle to massive corporate entities, macroeconomic cycles, and basically Wall Street algorithms.
And the actual mathematics behind the slow lane is what truly exposes the flaw here.
Let's look at the slow lane wealth equation because it is fundamentally different from the sidewalk equation we just talked about.
It is. For the slow laner, intrinsic value equals hourly wage multiplied by hours worked. Or I guess if you are on a salary, it's simply your yearly salary.
Which introduces the absolute core disease of the slow lane, what the author calls uncontrollable limited leverage, or ULL.
ULL. Okay, break that down for us.
This is a critical concept for anyone listening right now to really internalize. When your wealth equation is tied to variables that have absolute immovable ceilings, you can never, ever achieve exponential growth.
Because time is finite.
Exactly. There are only 24 hours in a day.
You physically cannot work 25.
You can't. Even if you are a highly paid attorney, right, billing $1,000 an hour, you eventually hit a ceiling where you need to sleep and eat and just exist as a human.
And if you are salaried, your ceiling is basically your lifespan.
Yep. You might live to be 80, maybe 90 if you're lucky. You cannot exponentially scale your intrinsic value when the primary variable in your wealth equation, which is your time, is strictly limited by the laws of physics.
You are just anchored to a linear trajectory.
Completely anchored. And what you are trading for, that linear trajectory, is your actual life. The author calls this the 5-for-2 trade.
Oh man, this is the part that hit me the hardest. We accept it as completely normal, but when you think about it, it's horrific.
It's so normalized.
It is. You are trading 5 days of your freedom, Monday through Friday, the absolute bulk of your waking hours, just to buy back 2 days of freedom on the weekend.
Yep.
If you look at that purely as an investment, it is a negative 60% return on your time. You are literally giving up 5 units of currency to get 2 back.
And that trade is non-negotiable in the slow lane. You give the prime decades of your existence, the years where your body is at its strongest and your mind is at its sharpest, to an institutional system that promises you a payout when you are elderly.
Okay, I have to interject here because I need to offer some serious pushback.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I know exactly what the listener's thinking right now, because I thought the same thing. It feels a bit like, a fitness influencer who sells you a PDF program of bodyweight squats, but they actually built their 20-inch biceps using anabolic steroids.
That's a funny way to put it, but yeah.
Like, if the slow lane is this mathematically flawed, terrible 5-for-2 trade, why do literally all the famous, trusted financial gurus preach it?
Ah, yes.
I mean, we see them on television. They have massive radio shows. They write New York Times bestsellers. Isn't saving your pennies and letting the magic of compound interest work over 40 years a guaranteed mathematically sound strategy?
Okay, that is the exact paradox we need to dissect. The text addresses this head-on with a brilliant concept called the paradox of practice.
Paradox of practice.
Yes. You have to look incredibly closely at the financial gurus who are preaching the slow lane on television and in their books. You have to ask yourself, are they wealthy because they skipped their morning $4 coffee and aggressively clipped grocery coupons for 50 years?
I mean, I highly doubt the guy with the syndicated radio show is sweating over a 50-cent discount on paper towels.
Ugh. They absolutely are not. They are wealthy because they are operating a fast lane vehicle themselves.
Oh.
They get incredibly rich by selling millions of books about the slow lane to millions of people.
Wow.
They syndicate their radio shows to thousands of markets. They are leveraging massive scale. They practice one wealth equation, a fast lane equation of mass distribution and scale, while vehemently preaching a completely different equation, the slow lane, to their audience.
That is fascinating. So they sell the map to the slow lane, complete with all the speed limits and toll booths and misery, but they themselves take a private helicopter directly to the destination.
That is exactly what they do.
But wait, what about the math of compound interest? Because the gurus always show those charts, the ones where if you invest $500 a month at an 8% return, you magically have $2 million in 40 years.
Right, the magical hockey stick chart. The text doesn't dismiss the mathematical reality of compound interest, but it fundamentally reclassifies its purpose.
Okay, how so?
Compound interest is a very powerful tool for preserving wealth and creating passive income once you already have a massive sum of capital.
Okay.
But it is utterly ineffective as a vehicle for rapidly creating wealth from scratch. Think about it. A 5% return on a $10 million principal is an incredible $500,000 a year in passive income.
Sign me up for that.
Exactly. But a 5% return on a $1,000 principal, that's $50.
Right.
It's not going to change your life. And when you factor in real-world inflation over 40 years, the actual purchasing power of that eventual $2 million they promise is severely diminished.
Okay, so if the sidewalk leads directly to a financial life, and the slow lane is essentially a 50-year slog toward a retirement home while your wealth is just slowly eaten alive by inflation, How do we actually break free?
That's the million-dollar question, literally.
What actually causes a person to look for a completely different map?
Yeah.
Because the author shares a biographical turning point that I think perfectly illustrates the psychological shift required to even begin looking for the fast lane.
Yes, the catalyst for change. It usually requires a specific, jarring moment that completely shatters your existing paradigm of how the world works.
And for the author, this paradigm shift happened when he was just a teenager.
Hmm?
And he paints a very vivid, honestly somewhat depressing picture of his starting point.
He doesn't hold back.
No, he doesn't. He describes himself growing up in Chicago, raised by a single mom. He wasn't a star athlete. He couldn't sing. He wasn't some child actor.
A granular kid.
He spent his afternoons eating donuts and using a broken broomstick to change the channels on the television because he was physically too lazy to get off the couch.
It is a profoundly relatable, unglamorous origin story. There's no innate genius or massive ambition present here at all.
Exactly. So one day, he's walking down the street to the local ice cream shop, and he sees it parked outside. A mythic Lamborghini Countach.
Oh man, the ultimate 80s supercar.
The exact car from the old Cannonball Run movies. It looks evil, it looks fast, it has those iconic spaceship doors that open vertically, and he is completely awestruck.
Right, because it is the ultimate physical manifestation of extreme, uncompromised wealth just sitting right in front of him in this mundane Chicago neighborhood.
And his internal monologue immediately starts racing, right? He's trying to rationalize what he is seeing based on the societal rules he's been taught.
He's trying to fit it into the Slowlane model.
Right. He's thinking, okay, the owner must be some old guy, wrinkled gray hair, probably a CEO who spent 40 years climbing the corporate ladder.
Because that's the only way he knows how to get rich.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then the owner actually walks out of the ice cream shop, and it's not an old CEO. The guy is maybe 25 years old.
Barely older than the author himself.
Yeah. He's wearing casual blue jeans, an oversized flannel shirt, and an Iron Maiden concert tee underneath.
Which is such a great detail. This visual immediately breaks the established stereotype of the wealthy, gray-haired executive riding in the back of a town car.
So the author's brain just completely scrambles. He tries to fit this new data into his existing paradigm. He thinks, okay, well, if he's not an old CEO, he must be a lottery winner.
Or a trust fund kid who inherited millions.
Or maybe some eccentric professional athlete. So, overcome with just sheer adrenaline and curiosity, he actually walks up to the guy just as the spaceship door swings up, and he asks a simple, direct question. "Excuse me, sir. May I ask what you do for a living?"
And the answer this young man gives changes the entire trajectory of the author's life.
The 25-year-old guy looks at him, smiles, and says, "I'm an inventor."
Wow.
And then he just gets in the Lamborghini and drives off.
Rare.
The entire encounter lasted maybe 90 seconds.
And we really have to analyze exactly why this specific 90-second moment was such a profound catalyst.
Because it wasn't just about the car.
No, it wasn't just about admiring a fast car. It
Right.
was about the utter destruction of a limiting belief system.
Yeah.
Up until that exact moment, the author genuinely believed that young wealth, like the coexistence of extreme wealth and youth, was an equation that strictly required fame, immense physical talent, or a lucky inheritance.
All things he knew with absolute certainty he did not possess.
Right. But this young inventor in an Iron Maiden shirt proved, in the flesh, that you could acquire incredible wealth rapidly without being on television, without playing in the NBA, and without waiting for a rich relative to die.
It shattered the myth.
It liberated the author from the prerequisite of fame. It proved that a fast lane actually existed in the real world, even if he didn't know the exact directions to get on it yet. It initiated the search.
But, knowing a road exists and actually driving on it are two vastly different things.
Oh, definitely.
Inspiration is fantastic, but it doesn't immediately put money in your bank account or build a business. How do you bridge that gap between realizing you need a new vehicle and actually building it without getting stuck in another hamster wheel?
And that leads us to the brutal reality of execution.
Yeah.
The friction of mediocrity. The transition phase from realizing the fast lane is possible to actually constructing a viable vehicle that can navigate it is often the most painful part of the journey.
And it was excruciatingly painful for him. Let's walk through his post-college years, because I think anyone who's ever tried to break out of the mold will find this painfully relatable.
Oh, for sure.
He graduates from college with 2 business degrees, but he fundamentally rejects the corporate drone life. He knows the Slowlane is a trap. He knows the 5-for-2 trade is a scam, so he adamantly refuses to get a quote-unquote real corporate job.
Which leaves him in a very precarious position.
Very.
He is trying to force Fastlane's success without understanding the underlying mechanics of how the Fastlane actually functions.
Right. So he spends years bouncing from one failed generic venture to another. He's selling vitamins, he's hawking cheap jewelry, he's joining network marketing gigs, he bought off late-night infomercials.
Hustling backward.
Exactly. And to fund these failures and just pay his basic bills, he's forced to work a series of grueling, minimum wage, labor-intensive jobs. He is a busboy clearing tables at a Chinese restaurant. He is delivering pizzas in the freezing cold.
Which is brutal work.
He is a stock clerk, organizing curtains in the drapery department at Sears. He even takes a job driving a limousine.
If we analyze this phase economically, we see the extreme friction between two opposing mathematical scales.
Okay, unpack that.
The author intellectually understood that he needed an exponential scale, the Fastlane, to achieve the wealth he saw in that Lamborghini.
Right.
But his day-to-day survival was completely trapped in a linear scale trading hours for dollars in these low-wage jobs. He possessed the theory of wealth, but he completely lacked the execution, the system, and the process to realize it.
And the psychological toll of that dissonance was massive. He is watching his college friends settle into the Slowlane. They're getting their predictable 4% yearly raises, buying their sensible Acuras, getting married, and seemingly moving forward.
They look successful.
Yeah. And meanwhile, he is 26 years old, deeply depressed, functionally broke, and living at home with his mother.
It's a tough spot to be in.
And the detail from the text that really sticks out is his mother's haunting, well-intentioned yet soul-crushing taunt. Whenever he was struggling, she would just yell at him, "Get a job, baby!"
Yeah. It is the ultimate manifestation of societal pressure. A mother's well-intentioned advice is almost always to conform to the slow lane because the slow lane is perceived as safe.
She even pushes him to apply for a position as the deli manager at the local grocery store.
Oh, man.
Imagine the internal torment of knowing in your soul that you were meant for the fast lane, having seen the reality of it, and the people closest to you are literally begging you to give up your dreams to go slice bologna for $10 an hour.
It perfectly highlights the immense gravitational pull of the slow lane. The resistance you face when you reject society's default roadmap isn't just internal, it's external.
Very external.
Your family, your friends, and your culture will actively try to pull you back into conformity. To break free from that gravity requires an almost irrational level of commitment, which usually requires hitting an absolute breaking point.
And for the author, that breaking point arrived in the form of what the book calls the blizzard of awakening.
Paint the picture of that moment for us because the environmental context here is crucial.
So he's working his dead-end limo driving job. It's the dead of winter in Chicago, and he is caught in an absolute blinding blizzard.
Terrible conditions.
It is the middle of the night. He is bone-tired, exhausted from working back-to-back shifts. His shoes are completely drenched from trudging through the snow, and his feet are freezing. He's got a splitting, throbbing migraine that handfuls of aspirin just aren't touching.
Sounds miserable.
The roads are entirely snowed in, traffic is at a standstill, so he's physically trapped. He pulls the long limousine over to the side of a faintly lit road, sitting in the freezing absolute silence, staring up at the cigarette-burned ceiling of this rented vehicle.
It is a moment of profound, inescapable isolation and misery.
It is total rock bottom. He has nowhere to go, no money, and no prospects. And in that freezing silence, a moment of absolute piercing clarity hits him like a freight train. He says out loud to himself in the empty limo, "You cannot live another day like this."
And this is the critical pivot of his entire life.
Yeah.
This is the exact moment where theory finally transitions into action.
Why then? Why in the limo?
Because in that freezing limo, he reclaimed the two most important tools for wealth creation: choice and control.
Okay.
The author makes a profound observation that the leading cause of poorness isn't a lack of opportunity, it is a long, sustained sequence of poor choices.
Oh, that's heavy.
It is. In that blizzard, he realized he had been making choices that kept him trapped in his mother's house and in that driver's seat. By deciding in that very instant to radically change his environment, to pack up and move cross-country to Phoenix, Arizona, with just $900 to his name and a rusty Buick Skylook that literally didn't have a third gear.
That detail is so good. No third gear.
Right. By doing that, he took absolute, uncompromising control over his own trajectory.
But, I mean, making that aggressive choice in a freezing limo is really just a shift in mindset.
Sure.
It gets him out of Chicago, sure, but it doesn't instantly put $1 million in his bank account. How do you bridge the gap between running away from the slow lane, and actually constructing the vehicle that will generate wealth.
That's the real work.
Which transitions us into the next major concept of the deep dive, which I found incredibly illuminating: the difference between process versus event.
A vital distinction.
The author is in sunny Phoenix now, no more blizzards, but how does he actually start building wealth? We have to understand the fundamental difference between arriving at a destination and the grueling, unglamorous journey it takes to get there.
Because we live in a society that aggressively glorifies the event and completely hides the process.
Always.
We see the tech founder ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange during their IPO, or we see the athlete hoisting the championship trophy amidst falling confetti. We only consume the event.
We just see the highlight reel.
Exactly. What we don't see are the thousands of hours of flawed code written in a damp, poorly lit garage, or the 5-point AM ice baths, the torn ligaments, and the years of obscurity.
The author actually uses a fantastic analogy from his college days to really grill this concept home. He and his college buddies decide to take an epic spring break road trip from Chicago all the way down to South Florida.
Classic college move.
Right. And they are entirely obsessively focused on the event. The sunny beaches, the parties, the ultimate destination.
They are fixated on the reward without respecting the mechanism required to achieve it.
Exactly. Because they were so hyper-focused on the destination, they completely neglected the process of getting there, which, in the context of a road trip, is the vehicle itself.
The poor Dodge Duster.
Yeah. They didn't check the oil levels, they didn't inspect the engine belts, they didn't check the tire tread. And predictably, 8 hours into the trip, their old Dodge Duster blows a gasket, billows black smoke from the hood, and breaks down in the middle of a smelly cow pasture in a cornfield in rural Illinois.
And their trip is over before it really began.
It's over.
It is a perfect, scalable metaphor for wealth creation. If you try to skip the process of building a robust system, you will never experience the event of financial freedom. The vehicle matters immensely more than the daydream.
And to really cement this idea of building the vehicle, you mentioned an Egyptian parable from the text that explains the mechanics of Fastlane wealth brilliantly. The story of two nephews, Chuma and Azor.
Oh, this is a brilliant illustration. It really separates the slow lane work ethic from the fast lane work ethic.
Tell us this story.
Okay, so an Egyptian pharaoh commissions his two young nephews, Chuma and Azur, to build two monumental pyramids as a tribute to the kingdom. He promises them that whoever finishes their pyramid first will be rewarded with kingship, lavish luxury, and immense wealth for the rest of their natural lives.
High stakes.
Very. But the only catch is that they must build their pyramids entirely alone.
Okay, so how did the two nephews approach this massive undertaking?
Azur immediately takes the slow lane approach. He is entirely event-driven, obsessed with seeing immediate progress. So he starts dragging massive, heavy stones across the scorching desert, using sheer brute force and grueling manual labor.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. And he makes quick progress initially. Within a few months, the first few levels of his pyramid are built. But as the pyramid gets higher, the stones need to be lifted further, they become heavier to maneuver, and his physical strength begins to wane.
Ah, I see where this is going.
He is trading his physical time and physical energy directly for linear progress, and predictably, he eventually hits an absolute physical ceiling.
That is the uncontrollable limited leverage, the ULL we dissected earlier.
Yes, exactly.
He physically cannot drag enough stones fast enough to finish the job before his body breaks down.
Exactly. Now look at Chuma. Chuma takes the true fast lane approach. For years, Chuma's plot of land remains completely empty. Not a single stone is moved. Azur mocks him relentlessly, calling him lazy, while Azur continues to sweat in the sun.
But Chuma isn't lazy, is he?
No, Chuma isn't lazy at all. He is deeply focused on the process. He isn't moving stones. He is locked in his barn, inventing, engineering, and building a massive machine, a complex system of pulleys, levers, and wooden cranes.
He's not building a pyramid yet. He's building the vehicle that will build the pyramid.
Yes. And after 3 years of apparent inactivity, Chuma rolls his massive machine out to the construction site. Within a matter of months, the machine easily does the work that would have taken Azur decades to accomplish by hand.
Wow.
Chuma effortlessly finishes his pyramid, claims the kingship, and retires young in absolute luxury. Azur, broken, humiliated, and physically exhausted, dies of a heart attack trying to manually drag one final stone up a ramp.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of this for the listener, because it's a great story. But how does someone apply this machine-building concept practically in the modern real world.
Right, because we aren't building literal pyramids in the desert.
Exactly. How do you avoid being an azure, just dragging stones your whole life in a cubicle?
The direct translation into the real world is the concept of business industrialization. You have to fundamentally separate your income from your physical time.
Okay.
Fastlaners do not chase money, they chase needs, and they build autonomous systems to solve those needs at scale. Instead of manipulating the hours worked variable in the Slowlane equation, they manipulate the asset value variable.
So the system's the asset.
Yes. You are building a system, maybe it's a digital platform, a franchise model, a software application, a manufacturing process that can operate, scale, and generate massive value completely independently of your physical presence.
So you aren't the one sweating and dragging the stone. You own the crane that lifts 1,000 stones while you were asleep.
That's the dream.
But to build that crane, to construct this Fastlane machine properly, you need a structural blueprint.
Yeah.
You can't just build any business and expect it to be a Fastlane vehicle, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
The text outlines a very specific blueprint called the Fastlane framework. What are the definitive rules of the road here?
The author identifies 5 core commandments that dictate whether a business is truly a Fastlane vehicle or just, a miserable, stressful job in disguise.
Okay.
If you violate these commandments, your business will likely fail, or worse, it will trap you in a cage of your own making where you are working 80 hours a week just to survive. These are non-negotiable laws. Let's break them down carefully.
Let's do it. The acronym the book uses is SCSTNECS. First up is the commandment of need.
The big one.
Yeah, the text states that 90% of all new businesses fail within 5 years, and it asserts that it's mostly because they blatantly violate this one fundamental rule. They base their entire business model on selfish internal desires.
You hear it all the time from aspiring entrepreneurs, right? I want to be my own boss, or I want to do what I love, or I want to generate passive income so I can travel.
Right. But the harsh reality is that the free market does not care about your dreams.
It really doesn't.
The universe does not care that you want to be rich or that you want to set your own schedule.
The market is entirely selfish. It only cares about what your business can do for it. Does your product solve a genuine problem? Does your service ease a specific pain point?
Does it make my life easier?
Exactly. Does it provide better, faster, or cheaper results than the current alternatives? Money is simply a neutral reflection of value created. If you chase money selfishly, you will invariably fail because you are ignoring the needs of the consumer.
That makes so much sense.
If you chase needs, if you relentlessly focus on solving problems for other people, the money will naturally follow. You have to undergo a massive psychological shift from being a selfish consumer to becoming an empathetic producer.
That completely flips the mainstream, do what you love and the money will follow advice right on its head.
It obliterates it.
If you love playing guitar, but no one wants to listen to you play, the market will not reward you no matter how passionate you are.
Precisely.
Okay, next up is the commandment of entry.
This one is absolutely critical for avoiding saturated markets. The commandment of entry states that as the barriers to entry in any specific business or industry fall, the competition exponentially rises, and the viability of that road weakens.
So easy isn't always good.
Easy is terrible. If anyone with a pulse can start your exact business in a single weekend for $50 and an internet connection, you are in serious trouble.
The story he tells to illustrate this perfectly captures the absurdity of low-barrier opportunities.
Oh, the 1994 story.
Yeah, it's 1994, and he finds himself sitting in this hot, crowded auditorium for a massive network marketing meeting.
Yeah.
Everyone is cheering, the music is blaring, and the speaker on stage is just getting everyone hyped up to sell some miracle nutritional supplement.
We've all seen those meetings. And amidst the frenzy, he looks around at the thousands of people cheering, and he has a moment of profound clarity. He realizes he is just one single ant in a massive, easily replicable anthill.
Yeah.
He realizes he doesn't want to be the sheep being herded into this program. He wants to be the person who owns the company herding the sheep.
You can be the sheep or the sheep herder. I love that distinction. If a business opportunity requires an event to join, like simply signing a digital form, buying a starter kit, or clicking a button to become a driver for a rideshare app, it violently violates the commandment of entry.
It does. Fastlane businesses require a rigorous process to start.
Like what?
They require writing complex code, securing patents, raising capital, navigating complex logistics, or building a brand from scratch. The harder it is to start, the fewer people will be willing to endure the process, meaning you will have less traffic on your road and your profit margins will be significantly higher.
Which leads directly and logically into the third rule, the commandment of control. This is where we must discuss the absolute dangers of being what the author calls a hitchhiker.
This is so relevant today.
It really is. Hitchhiking in business. Walk us through the mechanics of why this is so dangerous.
A hitchhiker is an entrepreneur who builds their business and relinquishes ultimate control to someone else's Fastlane platform. You're basically building your house on rented land.
Give us an example.
Think of a massive Amazon FBA seller who builds $1 million business, but then an algorithmic change or a malicious competitor gets their account suspended. They lose their entire income stream overnight, and they have no recourse because they don't own the platform.
Or think about a YouTuber who spends years building an audience of millions only to have their entire channel demonetized on a Tuesday because the platform arbitrarily updated its content policies.
Yes. Or a network marketer who spends a decade building a massive downline, only for the parent company to suddenly alter the compensation plan and slash their commissions in half.
Wow.
Exactly. When you are a hitchhiker, you do not control your environment. You are happily riding in the passenger seat of someone else's vehicle, completely at the mercy of the driver. A true Fastlaner demands absolute control.
Control over everything.
Yes, they control their brand identity, their pricing structures, their distribution channels, and their operational systems. If an external entity, a tech giant, a supplier, or an algorithm can flip a switch and instantly destroy your equity, you are violently violating the commandment of control.
Okay, so we have need, entry, and control. The fourth commandment is where the mathematics of wealth really explode. The commandment of scale, which introduces the core theorem of the book, the law of affection.
This is the mathematical heartbeat of the entire Fastlane philosophy. The law of affection dictates that the amount of money you make is directly proportional to the amount of value you provide on a massive scale.
Okay.
If you want to make millions of dollars, you must serve millions of people. The universe does not respond to the law of attraction. Wishing for a check in the mail or creating a vision board will not magically alter your bank account. The universe responds strictly to the law of affection.
So the more lives you affect in a positive way, the richer you become. Let's break down the math of how you actually achieve that scale, because the book specifies two distinct levers you can pull, right?
Right. Mathematically, scale is achieved through either magnitude or reach, and ideally both.
Define reach for us.
Reach is simply units sold. If you write a software program or a book that helps millions of people and you sell it for $20, you scale by massive reach.
Got it. What about magnitude?
Magnitude, on the other hand, is unit profit. If you are a commercial real estate developer who builds a high-rise apartment complex, you might only affect a few hundred buyers, but the magnitude of the transaction, the profit on each unit, is massive.
Okay, so to put it simply, a kid selling lemonade in his cul-de-sac violates the commandment of scale completely.
Totally.
He can only physically reach his immediate neighbors, so his reach is capped at maybe 50 people, and his unit profit is 50 cents, so his magnitude is non-existent. But if that same kid formulates his recipe, bottles it, patents the brand, and secures distribution to get that lemonade on the shelves of 10,000 grocery stores nationwide,
then he has fundamentally satisfied the commandment of scale. He has reached millions of potential customers, and he has leveraged a system of distribution that operates completely independently of his own time, which, crucially, satisfies the final commandment, the commandment of time.
which brings us full circle.
Yes. A true Fastlane business must be an entity that can eventually survive, thrive, and scale without you physically punching a clock or being present on the factory floor.
If we step back for a moment and look at the entire arc of this journey we've discussed today, from being an unmotivated kid on a couch watching TV with a broomstick, to being trapped in the illusions of the sidewalk, surviving the absolute misery of that snowy Chicago blizzard, and eventually mastering these 5 commandments to hit the open, unconstrained roads of the fast lane. It's a profoundly structural shift in how one views reality.
It really is. It is not merely a change in financial tactics. It is a total foundational shift in personal identity.
And to synthesize all these key ideas into one clear, memorable insight that you can walk away with, true wealth is not a matter of luck.
Not at all.
It's not a lottery ticket. It's certainly not a 50-year sentence of frugal coupon-clipping misery, hoping the stock market doesn't crash right before you retire. And it is absolutely not sitting on your couch, staring at a vision board, repeating, "I want to be rich to the universe," while providing zero value to anyone.
No, true wealth is a carefully engineered process. It requires taking absolute, unapologetic responsibility for every choice you make. It requires aggressively rejecting the societal script that tells you it is acceptable to trade 5 days of your precious life for 2 days of freedom.
You have to fundamentally shift your identity. You must stop being merely a consumer of society's products and evolve into a producer who solves real-world needs on a massive scale.
That's the secret.
The shortcut to wealth does exist. That is the great secret. But the profound irony is that the shortcut requires executing a grueling, focused process. It requires building a system, a machine, a vehicle that is completely divorced from your personal time and energy.
You must dedicate years to building the crane so you don't have to spend your entire life dragging the stones.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the foundational mindsets of the fast lane. Now that we've mapped out the stark mathematical differences between the slow crawl to mediocrity and the fast track to absolute freedom, the next step is discovering the specific granular mechanics of how to actually build the vehicle that will get you there.
And as you move through your day today, I want you to critically analyze the systems in your life right now. Are you currently acting as a replaceable cog in someone else's fast lane machine, willingly trading your irreplaceable finite time for their exponential wealth? And if so, what is the very first uncomfortable choice you need to make today to start constructing a machine of your own?
What if the completely responsible traditional advice that you've been fed your entire life is just, well, what if it's a guaranteed ticket to quiet desperation?
Oh, man. That is a heavy question to start with.
Right. But I mean, think about it. You get a safe job, you save your pennies, you invest in like a diversified portfolio, and then you just wait. You wait 50 agonizing years to finally enjoy your life.
Yeah, the classic script.
Exactly. I mean, think about your commute this morning or just, the structure of your week. We trade 5 days of our lives just to buy back 2 days of freedom on the weekend.
2 days if you're lucky, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So what if there's a way to entirely bypass this waiting room of life? What if you could build extraordinary paradigm-shifting wealth while you are still young enough to actually enjoy it?
Instead of waiting until you're in your twilight years,
Right.
relying on some pension that honestly might not even exist by then.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We're looking at Chapter 2 of M.J. DeMarco's The Millionaire Fastlane.
Which is titled How I Screwed Get Rich Slow.
Such a great title. And in this deep dive, you're going to learn how the author transitioned from being a clinically depressed, broke limo driver to a multimillionaire.
And, he didn't do it by getting lucky. He did it by completely reprogramming his approach to income and time.
Right, which makes understanding this psychological and mathematical shift it's absolute mandatory listening for anyone interested in business or taking their time back.
It really is. Because from the moment we enter the education system, we're conditioned to accept this highly specific linear timeline for our lives. We're taught to view time as something you trade it for survival.
Yeah, time for money. It's the default setting.
Exactly. And challenging that timeline, suggesting that the math we've all agreed upon is fundamentally flawed, it feels almost like breaking a law of physics.
People get so defensive.
Oh, incredibly defensive. When you tell someone the path they've been walking for 20 years is actually just a treadmill, they do not want to hear it.
I completely get why, though. It's terrifying to look at the blueprint of your life and realize, the foundation might be poured wrong.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow.
But that's the intellectual demolition we're embarking on today. And the crucial part here is that DeMarco didn't win the lottery. He didn't inherit a dime. He didn't get drafted into the NBA.
No, not at all.
He did it by fundamentally changing the mathematics of how wealth is generated. So let's start with the catalyst, because every massive worldview shift has like an inciting incident. Right?
Always. And for him, it all begins with what we could call the 90-second epiphany.
Yes. I want to paint this picture for you listening because it is so relatable. So DeMarco is a teenager in Chicago. And by his own admission, he's this out-of-shape kid, profoundly unmotivated, just spending his days lying around in a beanbag chair.
Just peak teenage inertia.
Peak inertia. He's eating donuts, watching endless TV, and this is my favorite detail. He is literally using a broken broomstick to poke the buttons on the TV.
Because he's just too lethargic to stand up and change the channel.
Exactly. There's no grand ambition here yet. He's just a perfectly ordinary teenager operating on society's default settings.
Right. So one day, the craving for ice cream finally overrides his laziness.
Thank goodness for ice cream.
Seriously. He summons just enough energy to haul himself out of that beanbag, and he walks down to the local ice cream parlor. And there, sitting entirely out of place in this mundane suburban parking lot, is his absolute dream car.
The Lamborghini Countach.
The Lamborghini Countach, the iconic one from the 1980s, with the spaceship vertical doors, the aggressive wedge angles, the giant spoiler,
Right.
like from Cannonball Run.
Oh, man, yeah. So he is instantly awestruck. He's standing there on the pavement and staring at this piece of automotive art, and he does what every single one of us does when we see extreme, unhidden wealth.
He starts making assumptions.
Right. He starts categorizing who the owner must be.
Because we all run the societal scripts we've been handed. He looks at a vehicle that costs more than his family's house, and he thinks, okay, who is allowed to own this?
And according to the narrative, it has to be a very old, gray-haired man.
Right, someone who worked for 40 or 50 years as an executive to finally afford a toy.
Or, if it is a young person, society tells us there are only a few acceptable explanations, right? Like, it must be a lottery winner.
Or someone who inherited a massive fortune. The lucky sperm club, as he calls it.
Yeah, exactly. Or a genetic anomaly, a pro athlete, an actor, a rock star. Because in his teenage mind, those are the only logical explanations for acquiring that much wealth at a young age.
It's a closed loop of logic. You either trade 50 years of your life for it, you get lucky, or you have a genetic gift.
Right. But then the door to the ice cream parlor opens.
And out walks the owner of the Lamborghini.
And it just completely breaks his brain. Because it's not an elderly CEO in a suit. It's not Michael Jordan.
No, it's a 25-year-old guy in faded blue jeans wearing this oversized, wrinkled flannel shirt with an Iron Maiden t-shirt underneath.
Just a totally regular-looking guy.
It's cognitive dissonance in real time. This guy completely shatters the teenager's rigid mental model. He doesn't fit into any of the socially acceptable boxes for immense wealth.
He looks like a guy who should be working at a record store, honestly.
Exactly. Yet he's holding the keys to a supercar.
So the teenager overcomes his awkwardness,
Yeah.
right? The guy walks up, opens that crazy vertical door, and the teenager just blurts out, "Excuse me, sir. May I ask what you do for a living?"
And the guy in the flannel shirt gives a 3-word answer that alters the entire trajectory of this kid's life. He simply says, I'm an inventor.
I'm an inventor.
Let's really analyze the psychological weight of those 3 words. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, I'm a movie star.
Or I play for the Bulls.
Right. In a mere 90 seconds, that interaction detonated a massive invisible wall inside his mind. It annihilated the limiting belief that young wealth is this VIP room reserved for a tiny, elite subset of society.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second because I think a lot of listeners might be having the same reaction I am.
Okay, go for it.
It's very easy to look at a 25-year-old with a supercar and just assume they got lucky in some way they aren't disclosing. How does hearing the word inventor actually rewrite a teenager's worldview?
That's a fair question.
Because let's be real, an inventor still sounds like an unattainable genius to most people, right? You hear inventor and you think of Thomas Edison
Right.
or Nikola Tesla. You think of someone with a 160 IQ in a lab. How does that make wealth feel accessible to a kid poking a TV with a broomstick?
It's a brilliant question. It's true that inventor sounds intelligent, but here is what it fundamentally shifts. It moves the goalposts from the biologically impossible to the process-driven possible.
Oh, interesting.
Think about the alternatives. If you are not born 7 feet tall, you cannot play center in the NBA. That is a hard biological barrier. No amount of positive thinking will make you grow 2 feet.
Right, definitely not.
If you don't have symmetrical facial features and charisma, you likely won't be a Hollywood leading man. But an inventor. Strip away the romanticized Tesla imagery. What is an inventor, really?
Someone who makes things.
An inventor is simply a person who observes a problem in the world and builds a solution for it. That is an intellectual pursuit. It is a process. It is a sequence of learnable actions.
Ah, I see.
Hearing that word proved to him that fameless, talentless wealth was entirely possible. You don't need the genetic lottery. You just need to figure out how to solve a problem.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, let's build an analogy for the listener here. It's like finding out a mind-bending magic trick isn't actually magic. It's just a highly leveraged, learnable skill.
I love that analogy.
Right.
Yeah,
Like when you sit in the audience and watch an illusionist to make a car disappear on stage, part of your brain thinks they must have supernatural powers. You think, I could never do that.
because you don't see the mechanics.
Exactly. But then, imagine you get invited backstage. You see the mirrors, you see the trapdoors, the hidden wires, the lighting angles. Suddenly, the mystical aura vanishes.
It's just physics and engineering.
Yes. Once you know how the trick is done, you can't unsee it. The illusion is broken, and you realize, oh, I could learn to build those trapdoors if I studied the mechanics.
That is the perfect framework for this moment. The Lamborghini in the parking lot was the magic trick. The illusion of unattainable success. Those 3 words, I'm an inventor, were the tour backstage.
So the practical takeaway for you listening right now is that you have to ruthlessly audit and redefine what you believe is possible for your own life.
Absolutely. If you're operating under the quiet assumption that financial independence requires fame or exceptional physical talent, you are artificially capping your own potential.
You're building walls that don't exist. You need a system and a shift in your personal wealth equation.
But, and this is a big but, knowing how the magic trick works doesn't make you a master illusionist by Tuesday.
Oh, definitely not. You still have to build the trapdoors. The realization in that parking lot didn't magically put a Lamborghini in DeMarco's driveway the next morning.
In fact, knowing the truth actually made his life infinitely harder for a very long time. It threw him into this grueling battle against the expectations of everyone he knew.
Let's navigate that gap, because this moves us into the intense gravitational pull of mediocrity.
Right. So the teenager grows up, he goes to college, graduates with 2 business degrees. But because of that epiphany, he views the university system and corporate recruiting as what he calls prenatal employee brainwashing.
Wow, prenatal employee brainwashing. That is an abrasive phrase.
It is, but it captures his visceral rejection of being groomed for a traditional 40-year corporate existence. He felt like he was being processed on an assembly line.
Meanwhile, all of his friends are happily walking right onto that assembly line. They're taking the path of least resistance.
Getting safe, respectable corporate jobs at companies like Motorola or Hertz.
Right, gathering at bars on Fridays, bragging about their 4% annual raises and their 401k matching, buying sensible Acuras, signing mortgages on suburban townhouses.
They are firmly entrenched in what we call the slow lane.
But because he saw backstage, he refuses to settle for the cubicle. So instead of taking the safe job, he bounces between this chaotic string of entrepreneurial schemes.
He tries selling vitamins, hawking jewelry, goofy network marketing gigs.
And none of them generate real revenue. So to fund these failures, he has to work a string of grueling, ego-crushing physical jobs.
We really need to emphasize how deeply painful this period of his life was. This wasn't some romantic montage where he struggles for 5 minutes to an upbeat song.
No, this was years of grinding poverty and humiliation. He was a busboy at a roach-infested Chinese restaurant, clearing plates for people his own age who had those corporate jobs.
He worked as a day laborer in the slums of Chicago doing brutal physical work, delivered pizzas, painted houses.
He drove a limousine in the dead of night, dealing with drunk, abusive passengers. He was physically depleted, emotionally hollowed out, and financially ruined.
The toll is immense. He falls into a deep, paralyzing seasonal depression. His longtime girlfriend leaves him.
And her reasoning is brutal, but from her perspective, it's entirely logical. She tells him point blank that he has no resolve.
Because she's making $28,000 a year at a rental car agency, which isn't much, but it's safe. It's predictable.
And he's making a fraction of that, smelling like pizza grease, and his businesses keep imploding.
To top it all off, he's living in his childhood bedroom with his mother, who is constantly screaming at him, "Get a job, baby, just get a job."
Oh man, that is so rough.
If we look at the bigger picture of human behavior, what he's experiencing here is the intense, almost inescapable gravitational pull of the slow lane.
Yeah, it's phenomenally difficult to pursue an unconventional path when absolutely everyone in your ecosystem, your friends, your partner, your mom, is demanding you settle for mediocrity.
And the insidious part is, they aren't doing it to be malicious. They aren't trying to destroy his dreams out of spite.
No, they think they're helping.
Exactly. The slow lane is society's default setting. It feels safe. When his mother suggests he take a job as a deli manager at the local grocery store, that is her genuine way of trying to protect him from the pain of his own failures.
But I want to push back on his stubbornness here. Look at it objectively. Honestly, wasn't his mom right?
Oh, you mean?
Why shouldn't he have just taken the deli manager job? Why not take a safe job? build up a safety net, move out of his childhood bedroom, and then pursue his entrepreneurial dreams on the weekends from a place of stability. Isn't that the smart way to do it?
That is the exact rationalization that traps millions of people forever.
Wait, really?
Yes, because comfort is the ultimate silent killer of ambition. Yes, taking the deli job is the smart short-term move to alleviate immediate pain. But what happens next?
You get a steady paycheck.
Right, you get a steady paycheck. You can suddenly afford to go out to dinner on Friday nights. You move into a mediocre apartment.
Okay, that sounds nice.
It does. The searing, burning pain of being a broke loser living with your mom fades away.
Yeah.
But it's replaced by a dull, manageable ache of a mediocre existence. You get just comfortable enough that the urgency to escape vanishes.
Oh, wow. That's what you're saying.
You tell yourself you'll work on your business on the weekends, but after a 40-hour week managing the deli, you're tired. You watch TV instead. 10 years go by, the safety net becomes a hammock, and then the hammock becomes a cage.
That is terrifyingly accurate. So his absolute rock bottom, the pain of his reality, was actually his greatest competitive advantage. The fact that he had zero comfort meant he had zero complacency.
Precisely. The pain of his current situation had to become so acute, so unbearable, that it forced a radical, non-negotiable change in his environment.
Which brings us to the climax of this dark period, the blizzard.
Yes, the blizzard. Let's set the scene because it is the turning point of his entire life.
Okay, so it's the dead of winter in Chicago.
Yeah.
The temperature is hovering around zero. He is working the night shift driving a limousine.
He has a pounding, relentless migraine.
And the snow is coming down so hard in a complete whiteout that his usual safe routes are impassable. He has to pull the massive limo over on the shoulder of this faintly lit, deserted road just to avoid crashing.
The heater in the limo isn't working properly. Or maybe he just tracked in so much snow from opening doors for clients that the floorboards are flooded. His shoes are completely soaked.
He can literally feel the freezing, icy chill of melted snow crawling up his legs, numbing his feet. He's sitting there in the freezing dark, listening to the wind howl, staring at the cigarette-burned velvet ceiling of the limo.
And he has what he calls a Steinway piano moment of clarity.
Like a grand piano dropped on his head.
Exactly. This is the moment where the psychological scales tip. The pain of staying exactly the same definitively exceeded the terror of the unknown.
He screams out loud in his own mind, "You cannot live another day like this."
It wasn't a gentle realization. It was a violent, absolute rejection of his reality.
And he decides, right there, shivering in the limo, to take radical control. He decides he has to sever ties with his environment.
He asks himself a beautifully simple question. If I could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
He hates the snow, so he picks the opposite of Chicago. He picks Phoenix, Arizona.
A month later, he packs whatever fits into his rusty 10-year-old Buick car that literally does not have a working third gear.
Which is wild for a cross-country trip.
Truly. And he arrives in Phoenix with exactly $900 to his name. No job lined up, knows zero people, no family.
He signs a lease on a tiny studio apartment, and he is so broke he doesn't have furniture, so he sleeps on a bare mattress on the floor in the kitchen, right next to the Pop-Tart crumbs.
This raises a profoundly important question for us to analyze. Why did this specific geographical move matter so much? Because moving to a new city doesn't magically put money in your bank account.
Right, it doesn't change your skills.
The move mattered because it was a physical manifestation of reclaiming his agency. It was an exercise in locus of control. By moving, he completely severed the gravitational pull of the Slowlane.
His mother wasn't there to yell at him. His friends weren't there to brag about their 401ks.
He took complete control of his environment. And for you, the listener, the practical takeaway here is vital. You have to learn to use your discontent as a catalyst, not a cage.
Do not settle for the slow lane just because the people around you are comfortable there, or because they're pressuring you to conform to their risk tolerance.
You always have the choice to take control of your environment. If your current environment is toxic to your goals, you might need to engineer your own version of moving to Phoenix. Isolate yourself from the noise to hear your own signal.
Okay, so he physically relocates. He severs the ties. But, as we're about to explore, moving to Phoenix just gave him a new zip code. The physical move was only the prerequisite.
Right, because the real problem he had to solve wasn't geographical, it was mathematical.
He was still the bottleneck in his own life. The real breakthrough was a massive pivot in how he calculated the value of his work.
Exactly. The physical move gave him the isolation required to focus, but he desperately needed a mechanism for generating wealth. And the fascinating part is that he actually found the seed of that mechanism back when he was freezing in the limo in Chicago.
This is where the story gets really mechanical, in the
Yeah.
best way. When he was waiting for wealthy clients outside of restaurants in Chicago for hours on end, he wasn't just staring into space.
No, he was sitting in the driver's seat reading dense books on finance, business, and early internet programming.
And during one of those shifts, he noticed a massive unsolved friction point in the market. A passenger getting out of his limo asked him for a recommendation for a limo company in New York City for the following week.
And DeMarco had a sudden realization. This is the late 1990s. The internet exists, but it's young. If you lived in Chicago and needed a limo in New York, how on earth did you find one?
There was no global yellow pages. You couldn't just Google it. It was a fragmented, localized industry.
So, using the coding skills he was teaching himself in the front seat of the limo, he built a rudimentary web directory to solve this exact problem. He aggregated limo companies from different cities into one website.
It is the most classic entrepreneurial move. Observe a point of friction and build a solution that removes it. And because the internet is borderless, this digital asset traveled with him to Phoenix perfectly.
So in Phoenix, he is surviving by aggressively marketing this website. Limo companies start finding the directory. They notice his site looks better than anything else out there.
So they start emailing him, asking if he can build a website for their specific limo company. He says yes. He builds a site for a company in Kansas, charges them $400, and stays up all night to finish it in 24 hours.
The client is thrilled. The next day, he gets an email from a company in New York. He builds them a site for $600, takes 2 days.
He is paying his rent. He is absolutely thrilled. For the first time in his life, he's truly self-employed. He isn't carrying buckets of water for a boss at a Chinese restaurant anymore.
It feels like a massive victory. But from a purely mathematical standpoint, there is a massive fatal flaw in this setup.
And this is a flaw that keeps millions of brilliant, hardworking, self-employed people permanently trapped in the slow lane, even though they technically own their own business.
Yes. I want to dig into this flaw because I think a lot of freelancers and consultants listening right now are going to feel personally attacked by this math.
Let's lay it out. What is the flaw?
His income is still strictly, undeniably tied to his time. If he does not physically sit at his bulky 1990s desktop computer and type lines of HTML code, he does not get paid.
He traded a traditional boss for a roster of clients, but he is still just trading hours for dollars.
If he gets the flu and can't look at a screen for a week, his income drops to zero. If he wants to scale his business and buy a house, he physically cannot because there is an absolute ceiling on his inventory. There are only 24 hours in a day.
This is the concept DeMarco coins as uncontrollable limited leverage, or ULL.
Exactly. This is the disease of the slow lane. Let's do the actual math for the listener to make it painfully clear. Let's say you are the greatest freelance web designer in the world, or the greatest lawyer or massage therapist.
The profession doesn't matter.
Right. Let's say you command a premium rate of $100 an hour. You feel rich. But look at the absolute physical limits of your wealth. If you work 10 hours a day, you make $1,000.
But let's say you want to make more. You push yourself to work 24 hours a day, completely foregoing sleep, food, and human interaction.
The absolute mathematical ceiling on your daily income is $2,400. You cannot force a 25th hour into the day.
If your wealth equation relies on a variable that has a finite, uncontrollable limit, like the hours in a day, your wealth is inherently mathematically limited.
You will never achieve exponential wealth as long as your hands have to touch every single dollar you make.
That math is sobering.
Yeah.
So how does he break the equation? Because right now, he's just a guy making $400 a day sweating over a keyboard.
The catalyst comes when a friend from his Chicago days comes down to visit him in Phoenix to escape the winter.
The friend is hanging out in the studio apartment, looking over DeMarco's shoulder at this web directory he built. And the friend is blown away by the sheer volume of traffic.
Because the directory isn't just getting hits, it's getting actual price inquiries from travelers all over the world every single minute.
DeMarco opens his inbox, and there are 450 emails from people saying, "I need a limo in Boston on Tuesday. How much?" He hits refresh 10 minutes later, and there are 30 more emails.
The friend looks at this river of data, looks at DeMarco sweating over building a single $400 website and says, "Dude, stop building websites, turn those emails into money somehow."
And this right here is the pivot. This is the exact moment The tectonic plates of his financial life shift.
He is staring at massive, scalable, borderless demand, and he has to figure out a mechanism to monetize it without it requiring his manual physical time for each transaction.
So he takes what I consider to be an insane risk. Instead of selling his physical time to code websites, which is guaranteed money to pay his rent, or just slapping static banner ads on the directory for a few pennies, he decides to sell the leads themselves.
He decides to take these incoming price inquiries from travelers, automatically route them directly to the inboxes of the limo companies in the corresponding cities, and charge the limo companies a small fee for delivering a warm customer lead.
Now, we have to contextualize this. This is the late 1990s. The dot-com boom is happening. But lead generation as a standardized business model wasn't a proven everyday thing like it is now.
Right, he had to conceptually invent the system, write the back-end code to automate the routing, and then convince his very old-school, tech-illiterate limo company clients to actually pay for an email.
Which requires immense courage. Because when you change a business model that drastically, you almost always encounter severe turbulence.
Oh, the turbulence was immediate. His income fell off a cliff.
The first month he launched the automated lead system, he made exactly $473 for the entire month.
He panicked.
I would too. He had to scramble and frantically build a few more manual websites just to avoid getting evicted.
But then, in month 2, the mathematical beauty of scale began to kick in. This is where we witness the transition from linear income addition to exponential income multiplication.
Month 2, the automated system generates $694. Month 3, it hits $970.
The limo companies realize these leads are turning into actual bookings, so they buy more.
Month 4, $1,832. Then $2,300, then $3,700. And it just keeps accelerating, compounding on itself.
He is suddenly making money while he sleeps on his mattress in the kitchen. He makes money while he is eating a sandwich. He makes money when he takes a day off to go hiking.
Let's aggressively break down the economics of what just happened here, because this is the core of the entire philosophy.
By shifting his offering from selling websites, which required his time, to selling automated leads, which was handled by software, he shattered the barrier of uncontrollable limited leverage.
His income was no longer constrained by the 24 hours in a day. His new upper limit was simply the number of leads the global internet could generate, which is virtually infinite.
He engaged in digital arbitrage. He solved a high-friction problem for two groups, travelers and limo companies, and connected them using an automated system.
I want to expand on an analogy here to make this structural shift unforgettable for the listener.
Okay, let's hear it.
When DeMarco was building websites for $400 a pop, he had essentially upgraded his career from carrying buckets of water for a boss to carrying his own buckets of water as a freelancer.
It felt better because he owned the buckets, but he was still doing the grueling hauling.
Right. If he stopped walking, the water stopped arriving. But when he wrote the code to start selling automated internet leads, he stopped carrying buckets entirely. He spent his energy building a pipeline.
It took intense upfront work to lay the pipes, write the code, and connect the source to the destination.
He starved for a month while he built it. But once that pipeline was connected and the valves were open, the water flowed continuously, 24 hours a day, whether he was watching it, sleeping, or on vacation.
That is the perfect visualization of the math. The pipeline represents the decoupling of time from income, and the practical takeaway here is absolute. You must ruthlessly, objectively audit exactly how you generate your income right now.
Are you selling your time? Even if you are a highly specialized surgeon or a corporate consultant with a massive hourly rate, if you stop working and the money stops flowing, you are in a highly vulnerable financial position.
To achieve rapid, extraordinary wealth, you must find a way to sever the cord between your income and the physical hours you work. You must build a pipeline.
Okay, so the pipeline is built, the system is working, the money is flowing into his bank account in Phoenix. The story ends happily here, right?
Well, not exactly.
Because this brings us to a massive psychological and financial trap. It turns out that having a functioning pipeline and a sudden influx of cash is absolutely not the same thing as being truly wealthy.
No, it is not. And this is a very specific, dangerous trap that catches many first-time successful entrepreneurs. They mistake a single financial liquidation event for permanent financial freedom.
They confuse cash with wealth. Let's follow the timeline. It is now the year 2000. The dot-com boom is in absolute euphoric full swing. The market is irrational. Venture capitalists are throwing millions at any company with the dot-com in its name.
DeMarco, sitting in Phoenix with this highly profitable engine, gets a phone call asking if he wants to sell his business.
He explores the market, ends up with 3 competing offers, and accepts one for $1.2 million. He is in his early 30s, the wire transfer hits his bank account, and he is instantly a millionaire.
He thinks he has crossed the finish line. He experienced a liquidation event. It feels like the ultimate victory. But without the mature financial discipline to manage capital, a windfall is just a mirage.
And evaporate it does. He takes the money, and what is the very first thing he does? He immediately goes out and buys a brand new Corvette.
By his own admission, he bought it to look rich. He wanted the external validation.
Then, slush with cash and unearned confidence, he makes a series of incredibly poor, high-risk investments in the stock market, thinking he's a genius because he built a company.
He pays his massive capital gains taxes, and very, very quickly, within months, he watches his fortune plummet from $1.2 million down to roughly $300,000.
Let's pause and dissect that. How do you lose almost $1 million that quickly?
Because he possessed the specialized skill set to generate income, but he completely lacked the financial literacy required to preserve and multiply wealth. He treated the money as an endless resource rather than a tool for generating passive yield.
Meanwhile, let's look at what is happening to the beloved company he just sold. The buyers who acquired it are executive management types. Ivy League pedigrees, Harvard MBAs, backed by around $12 million in venture capital.
On paper, they should have taken his profitable pipeline and turned it into a billion-dollar global empire.
But I have to laugh because they do the exact catastrophic opposite. They take this lean, cash-flowing machine and infect it with corporate bloat. Explain this to me, because how does a room full of Harvard MBAs destroy a profitable company so fast?
It is a textbook case of agency theory. When DeMarco ran the company, every dollar spent was his dollar. Every angry customer was his problem. When the MBAs took over, they were playing with venture capital money. It wasn't theirs.
Ah, right.
So instead of focusing on the core utility of the business routing leads efficiently, they start focusing on the optics of running a tech startup.
They implement decision-making by committee, which drastically slows down innovation.
They spend exorbitant amounts of capital on vanity metrics and corporate swag. Custom-branded water bottles, expensive logo t-shirts, lavish office furniture.
Expenditures that do absolutely nothing to generate revenue or improve the software.
And worse, they commit the cardinal sin of business. They completely stop listening to the customers. DeMarco mentions how, when he was running it out of his apartment, if a limo company emailed him with a bug, he would answer within 5 minutes and fix the code that afternoon.
But the new corporate executives instituted a rigid hierarchy. Customer complaints were routed to a help desk, then to a manager, then to a committee.
The customers felt ignored, the product stagnated, and then the inevitable happened. The dot-com bubble burst.
Venture capital dried up instantly, and suddenly, a company burning cash on water bottles instead of customer retention was facing imminent bankruptcy.
In a panic, the executive board decides they need to dissolve DeMarco's website entirely, even though, ironically, it was one of the only assets in their portfolio actually generating positive cash flow.
It's profound irony. The self-taught kid operating out of a studio apartment built a highly profitable system, and a boardroom of heavily funded MBAs ran it straight into the ground.
It is a devastating critique of the corporate mindset versus the entrepreneurial mindset. But this sets up an incredible twist in the narrative.
Facing the absolute death of his creation, DeMarco steps in. He offers to buy the company back from the bankrupt executives. And because they are desperate to liquidate, it's a fire sale.
He negotiates and gets his entire company back for a mere $250,000.
And here is the kicker. He finances the purchase, largely using the company's own future profits. If you look at the macro math, he effectively got paid nearly $1 million to let a bunch of executives borrow his company, mismanage it for a year, and hand it back to him.
It is a staggering turn of events. But this right here is where the permanent psychological shift occurs in DeMarco. When he reacquires the company, his mindset has profoundly matured.
He survived the mirage of the initial sale. He felt the pain of watching his bank account drain for a Corvette. He is no longer interested in looking rich. He is entirely focused on cultivating what he calls a true money tree.
Let's define that, because he gets the company back, and he goes to work with a completely different energy. He spends the next 18 months relentlessly obsessing over automating the systems.
He strips away all the corporate bloat the MBA has introduced. He streamlines the back-end code. He reconnects with the customers.
And as he optimizes these systems, something magical happens to his time equation. The amount of physical time he actually has to spend working on the business begins to shrink dramatically.
It goes from 10 hours a day down to 5 hours, down to a few hours a day. Eventually, he optimizes the system so perfectly that he is only working 1 single hour a day, just picking the metrics.
And this is the inverse of the slow lane math. While his time input shrinks towards zero, his revenue explodes upward exponentially.
By ruthlessly automating, he creates a living, breathing software system that acts as a flawless surrogate for his time. It operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without taking sick days.
Whether he is sleeping or out gambling at the Bellagio in Vegas, the system processes leads, charges credit cards, and deposits money into his account.
He shares the numbers, and they are staggering. He mentions months where he makes up to $200,000 in pure profit. A bad month was making $100,000.
He is generating in 14 days what the vast majority of human beings work an entire year to earn, and he is doing it while actively working maybe 5 to 10 hours a week.
He eventually rides this immense wave of profitability for years and then sells the company again, this time for multi-millions, cashing out completely and permanently securing his financial freedom.
What we are analyzing here is the crucial difference between the event of wealth and the process of wealth.
The first sale was an event.
Right, it was a sudden lump sum of cash. But because he hadn't fully mastered the internal process of preserving wealth, he almost lost it all. When he bought the company back, he ignored the idea of an event. He focused entirely on the process, the relentless automation, the absolute decoupling of his time from the revenue generation.
He didn't just build a business. He built an autonomous asset. And that is the ultimate practical takeaway for you listening to this deep dive. You must shift your focus entirely toward building automated systems and processes.
You are trying to cultivate a money tree, an asset that grows and generates value completely independently of your physical time.
Do not just chase a one-time payday, a lucky crypto pump, or a quick real estate flip. Those are events. You want to build a system that buys your permanent freedom, a machine that works tirelessly so that you don't have to.
Because true, unshakable wealth isn't just about having a high net worth on a spreadsheet. It is entirely about the freedom of time. It is having the financial resources to do whatever you want, whenever you want, without ever needing to ask a boss for permission.
DeMarco temporarily lost his Fastlane status when he bought the Corvette because his possessions required maintenance, insurance, and stress. They were draining his wealth rather than generating it.
He only achieved true wealth when his asset generated more cash passively than his lifestyle consumed.
It's an incredible narrative arc. Think about what he had to endure to get there. He had to hit rock bottom, shivering in a blizzard, build a digital pipeline out of sheer desperation, lose his initial fortune to ego-driven decisions, watch a boardroom of executives nearly destroy his creation, buy it back for pennies, and then possess the discipline to automate it perfectly.
It perfectly illustrates that the fast lane is absolutely not a smooth, straight, easy road. It is fraught with extreme turbulence, massive financial risks, and requires an unreasonable amount of grit.
Okay, let's bring all of this together. We've covered a massive amount of psychological and economic ground today. Let's synthesize the core of what we've unpacked for the listener.
If there is one core overarching insight that represents the absolute soul of this chapter, it is this. Extraordinary, paradigm-shifting wealth is not a magical gift bestowed upon the exceptionally talented or the remarkably lucky.
It is not an accident of birth.
No. It is the deliberate, engineered result of exponential mathematics. It requires you to completely and ruthlessly decouple your income from your physical time by building systems that solve problems for people at a massive scale.
And it requires the stubborn grit to endure the failures, the crushing self-doubt, and the intense societal pressures that will constantly try to drag you back into the comfortable mediocrity of the slow lane.
That is such a powerful synthesis. It's a complete rewiring of how we view our relationship with work, time, and money.
We started this deep dive looking at a lethargic teenager staring at a Lamborghini, fully believing it was an impossible magic trick. And we end with the raw blueprints, the math, and the schematics for exactly how the trick is performed.
The mechanics are laid completely bare. It is not magic. It is a highly leveraged, learnable skill.
Exactly. So now that you know this shortcut exists, and you've seen the blueprint of how one person built their pipeline from scratch, the obvious question remains. How do you actually navigate this high-speed road without getting sideswiped by the hidden dangers?
How do you choose the right problem to solve?
How do you avoid the massive potholes that bankrupt so many aspiring entrepreneurs before they ever get their pipeline built? That is exactly the tactical roadmap we will uncover in our next chapter.
Until then, I challenge you to take a hard, objective look at your own wealth equation this week. Are you spending your one precious life carrying buckets for someone else? Or are you laying the pipes for your own freedom?
Remember that medical X-ray machine analogy we discussed in previous sessions, the one that gives you a clear binary diagnosis of a broken bone. When it comes to your financial life, the Slowlane system desperately wants you to think the X-ray is clear. Just work 50 years, save your 10%, clip your coupons, and you'll be fine eventually.
But that X-ray is broken. It's a false manipulated image.
The real undeniable diagnosis is that your time on this earth is running out, and trading that time linearly for dollars is a terminal condition for your dreams. It's time to fix the machine, look at the real math, and start building your pipeline. We'll see you on the next deep dive. What if the reason you haven't achieved financial freedom yet isn't because you're on the wrong road, but because you fundamentally misunderstood that wealth is a grueling road trip and not, a magic teleportation device?
Oh, I love that framing. A teleportation device.
Right. I mean, why do so many smart, highly ambitious people end up financially stranded on the side of the road, just staring at a smoking engine, wondering where it all went wrong?
Well, it comes down to a fundamental cognitive error in how we conceptualize success. We're structurally conditioned by our environment to look for the transporter pad.
Beam me up.
Exactly. The button you can just press that beams you directly to the mansion on the beach or, the fully funded investment account. And in doing that, we completely ignore the underlying physics of actually getting there.
So in this deep dive into Chapter 3 of the Millionaire Fastlane, which is called The Road Trip to Wealth, we are dismantling the illusion that wealth is a single event or just some lucky break.
Yeah, we really have to tear that down.
You are about to learn the exact 4-part formula required for financial independence and why mastering the hidden, unglamorous process is really the only true way to reach your destination.
The only way.
I mean, this matters for anyone interested in business or entrepreneurship, because if you're only focused on the destination, your journey is, well, it's guaranteed to stall out.
And stalling out is the statistical norm, unfortunately. I mean, we can categorize this failure as the destination trap.
Right.
If you look at human psychology, we're inherently teleological.
Meaning we're driven by the end goal.
Driven by ends, by goals, yeah.
Yeah.
You picture the financial freedom, the absolute lack of an alarm clock, right?
Well, that's the dream.
The autonomy to direct your own day. And that visualization is powerful, but in that sheer infatuation with the end state, the actual vehicle you were driving and the mechanical reality of the journey are just entirely neglected.
The author provides a case study from his college days that perfectly anchors this concept. And I kind of want to look at the mechanics of this story because it's deceptively simple, but it illustrates this massive blind spot.
It really does. It's a great story.
So he and his friends are in Chicago for spring break, and they decide to drive to South Florida.
Typical college trip.
Right. The destination is crystalline. It's sunny beaches, warm weather, parties. The anticipation is just palpable. But the vehicle they're relying on to bridge the gap between their current freezing reality and that desired reality is a beat-up, rusty Dodge Duster.
A compromised vehicle from the absolute moment the key turns in the ignition.
Exactly. And yet, their locus of attention is completely detached from that immediate physical reality. They load up the car, blast the music, and just head south.
No prep at all.
None.
Yeah.
They don't check the oil. They don't evaluate the tire pressure. They do zero diagnostic work on the engine. They just assume the desire to reach Florida is enough to literally get them to Florida.
Just sheer willpower and optimism.
Right. And then 8 hours into the trip, the reality of physics asserts itself over their optimism.
As it always does.
As it always does. The engine starts clanking, smoke pours out of the hood, and the car dies completely. They blew a gasket and ran out of oil.
Nice.
So instead of South Beach, they are marooned in a manure-scented cornfield in southern Illinois.
I mean, it reads like a comedy of errors, but it perfectly models the default approach to financial planning for, most people.
It totally does.
We really need to examine the psychological mechanism driving this destination fixation. I mean, why do we prioritize the abstract future over the tangible present?
Yeah, why do we do that?
It actually operates on a neurochemical level. Visualizing the reward, so the beach house, the luxury car, the elimination of all your debt, that triggers a dopamine response.
But you get a high just from thinking about it.
Exactly. The brain rewards you simply for imagining the successful outcome, but checking the oil, or auditing your daily spending habits, or analyzing the structural flaws in your business model.
That sounds exhausting.
Right, that is cognitively taxing. It requires the prefrontal cortex to expend energy on friction and maintenance, which, crucially, does not release dopamine.
Oh, wow. So there's no biological reward for the grunt work.
None. So we naturally default to daydreaming.
Right. Okay, I see the neurochemical trap.
Ugh.
But if we look at the broader landscape of high-performance psychology and self-improvement, visualization is universally touted as the bedrock of success, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Manifest your destination, keep your eyes on the prize. The prevailing theory is that a vivid vision acts as a magnetic force, just pulling you through inevitable hardships.
Are we suggesting that having a clear destination is actually detrimental?
Not detrimental, but grossly insufficient when it's isolated. I mean, a destination is mandatory for establishing a vector. You have to know which direction to steer.
Yeah.
The flaw lies in the physics of that popular magnet analogy. A magnet, no matter how powerful the magnetic field is, it cannot pull a car that has no wheels or a seized engine.
Right. The physical reality wins. The friction of the broken vehicle will always overpower the pull of the magnet. Vision provides direction, but it generates zero kinetic energy. The engine, which is the daily grinding reality of your operational choices and your habits, that is the only thing capable of generating forward momentum.
The vision is the compass, not the combustion chamber. I love that.
Precisely.
If your financial habits are chaotic, dreaming of $1 million while actively financing a lifestyle you can't afford on high-interest credit, that's the equivalent of flooring the accelerator in a car with no oil.
Yep.
The friction will eventually just melt the engine block.
And this specific vulnerability, right, this desperation to reach the destination without managing the vehicle, it makes us highly susceptible to an entire industry designed to exploit that exact impatience.
Oh man, the guru economy.
Exactly. The author describes this as the illusionary road.
Let's examine how this exploitation actually works. The author uses a culinary analogy that highlights the absurdity of how financial advice is normally packaged.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, so if you want a batch of chocolate chip cookies, and I lock you in a kitchen with nothing but a bag of flour and a bag of sugar, the desired outcome is mathematically impossible.
You have isolated components, but you lack the systemic framework. Flour and sugar combined do not yield 20% of a cookie.
No, they don't.
They yield a useless powder.
Just a mess on the counter. And yet, if we map this onto the financial media ecosystem, we see an industry entirely built on selling flour and sugar as if they were finished cookies.
All day long.
Without baking soda for leavening, without butter for fat and flavor, and fundamentally, without the transformative heat of the oven, those raw ingredients are inert. But traditional wealth advice continuously sells isolated variables rather than complex interdependent formulas.
We have to look at the structural incentives of the financial media and the guru economy to really understand why this happens. They isolate one variable in a multivariable equation because a single variable is highly marketable.
It's easy to digest.
Right. It requires very little cognitive load for the consumer to understand.
You see this constantly. Buy distressed foreclosures with no money down, or trade Forex options using this one weird indicator, or master this specific copywriting hook and make 6 figures.
It's an entire marketplace selling isolated tactics.
It's an economy of pure sugar.
And the reason this marketplace thrives is rooted in behavioral economics. Sugar is sweet, it triggers an immediate biological reward, and crucially, it requires zero chewing.
Wow. Yeah, it just melts in your mouth.
Digesting complex carbohydrates, or in this context, absorbing the reality of systemic business building, that requires time, metabolic energy, discipline. Society consumes the sugar of isolated wealth tactics because the full recipe demands an intimidating amount of unglamorous friction.
That's hard work.
The full recipe requires assembling capital, mastering sales psychology, building resilient operational systems, failing repeatedly, recalibrating. Of course, promising instant returns in real estate is just a sugar rush to bypass that reality.
So the implication here is that wealth generation is fundamentally algorithmic. It's a complex equation with multiple dependencies. And if a single variable in that equation drops to 0, the entire output drops to 0.
Exactly. The math doesn't lie.
You could purchase the most advanced real estate investing system in the world, which we can call the road. But if your personal financial discipline is non-existent, Your vehicle breaks down.
Right.
Or you could possess an incredible work ethic and elite skills. But if your underlying operating system assumes that rich people are inherently corrupt, or that wealth requires 50 years of corporate servitude, your internal compass will actively sabotage your progress.
You've identified the core issue there. The listener needs to critically evaluate the media they consume and the strategies they purchase. Wealth is not a discrete tactic or a single ingredient. It's a synergistic formula.
It has to all work together.
Yes. When confronted with an advertisement or a methodology that promises rapid, frictionless wealth through a single mechanism, you must recognize it as an incomplete system. You simply cannot build a durable, resilient financial structure on a foundation of isolated tactics.
That structural reality forces us to confront the central thesis of this analysis. If wealth is a complex formula, the absolute core of that formula, the transformative heat of the oven in our baking analogy, is the strict delineation between an event and a process.
This distinction is paramount. I mean, it is the defining fault line separating those who reliably architect wealth from those who spend their lives merely reacting to their financial circumstances.
It's that big of a deal.
Oh, yeah. The conflation of event and process is arguably the most destructive cognitive bias in the realm of achievement.
Okay, we need to define these terms rigorously for the listener. The event is the visible, externalized culmination of effort. It's the finish line. The process is the invisible, internal, and often highly repetitive friction that actually manufactures the event.
Perfectly said.
The author's use of professional athletics provides a brilliant framework for this. So consider a 20-something basketball player signing a multi-year contract worth $50 million. The signing of that document, the press conference, the flashing cameras, that is the event.
And notice how the broader culture interacts with that event. It's consumed instantaneously. It's broadcasted. It's analyzed, celebrated. The public interface with success is entirely restricted to the event horizon.
But the public interface completely filters out the physical and psychological toll of the process.
They don't want to see it.
Right.
Right.
The audience doesn't witness the thousands of hours of deliberate practice beginning in childhood.
Yep.
They don't experience the midnight drills in unheated gymnasiums, the torn ligaments, the isolating brutal months of physical rehabilitation, or the agonizing rejection of being cut from early developmental teams. The invisible accumulation of all that friction, that is the process.
We have to analyze why this systemic blindness exists. I mean, why does the human brain so willingly ignore the process?
Is it just laziness?
It's a bit deeper. We're dealing with a potent combination of survivorship bias and the economics of modern media. The media apparatus is incentivized to capture attention, right? And attention is most easily captured by high contrast, sudden changes in state.
Events.
Exactly. Events. A headline reading, "Tech founder sells startup for $1 billion, generates clicks."
Oh, millions of them.
But a daily live stream of a founder staring at a screen, debugging code in isolation, managing cash flow anxiety, and negotiating minor vendor disputes for 4 consecutive years, that generates zero engagement.
Zero. Nobody is watching that live stream.
Nobody.
So the observer is effectively hallucinating a false reality where success is sudden and spontaneous. They mistake the final visible inch of a marathon for the entire race.
Precisely. Because the public only observes the artifacts of success, the IPOs, the bestseller lists, the massive acquisitions, they internalize a distorted model of causality. They begin to believe that wealth is a lottery of favorable events, rather than the mathematical output of a rigorous process.
Okay, let's test the absolute limits of this theory.
Let's do it.
What about individuals who genuinely experience an event completely devoid of process?
Ah.
The most extreme example is a lottery winner. Someone walks into a convenience store, purchases a piece of paper, and 48 hours later, they possess $100 million.
Yeah.
It is a pure event. Doesn't the existence of the lottery winner fundamentally invalidate the premise that process is a prerequisite for wealth?
It actually serves as the ultimate validation of the premise.
Really? How so?
We have to differentiate between acquiring money and sustaining wealth. Yes, a lottery win is an event violently decoupled from process. But if we analyze the longitudinal data of lottery winners, the outcomes are staggering.
They usually go broke, right?
A massive percentage of individuals who receive sudden, massive windfalls experience complete financial ruin, bankruptcy, and severe psychological distress within a decade.
But why? If they have the capital, why does the system collapse?
Because they bypassed the process, they failed to construct the internal vehicle capable of navigating that new reality. The process of building wealth isn't just about accumulating capital. It is a forced evolution of character.
Oh, that's interesting.
The daily friction of building a business forces you to develop emotional regulation, an understanding of complex tax structures, risk assessment frameworks, and the ability to detect and deflect predatory behavior.
You literally level up as a human.
Exactly. The lottery winner is thrust into an elite financial environment with the baseline skills of an amateur. The external reality radically outpaces the internal capacity, and the system shatters. Process is the only mechanism that actually forges individuals capable of wielding wealth.
The process isn't just the path to the money. The process is what builds the container capable of holding the money.
That's it.
That reframes the entire concept of grinding. If you are listening to this and evaluating your own trajectory, you have to ask yourself a pretty uncomfortable question. Are you constantly seeking the friction-free shortcut, the hack, or the winning ticket? Because if you manage to skip the oven, you don't end up with cookies. You end up with raw dough that eventually rots. You have to actively seek out and embrace the unglamorous process.
Understanding that the process is mandatory is the philosophical foundation, but we need to operationalize it. We need to examine the actual physics governing this journey. This introduces the 4 interdependent components of the wealth formula.
Let's deconstruct this formula systemically. It's categorized into 4 parts, and the failure of any single component neutralizes the entire system.
Just like a car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The first component is your roadmap. In our navigational analogy, this is the fundamental belief system you operate from.
Your belief system is your cognitive compass. The source material categorizes these financial paradigms into 3 primary roadmaps: the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane. But the mechanical truth beneath these labels is that human behavior is always downstream from core beliefs. Beliefs filter your perception of reality, dictating your choices, and those compounded choices manifest your physical circumstances.
How does that filtering actually work in practice, like on a daily basis?
Consider the reticular activating system in the brain, which acts as a filter for environmental stimuli. If your internal roadmap dictates that wealth is a zero-sum game reserved for the corrupt, or that the only mathematically viable path to security is trading your time for an hourly wage for 50 years and hoarding pennies, your brain will literally filter out opportunities that contradict that belief.
It just won't even see them.
You will walk past a scalable business opportunity because your roadmap has categorized it as impossible or risky. A corrupted roadmap will execute its instructions flawlessly, guiding you with absolute precision to a destination of mediocrity.
Wow. So fixing the compass is step 1. But a perfect compass doesn't move you an inch on its own. That introduces the second component, your vehicle. And the harsh reality here is that the vehicle is entirely biological. The vehicle is you.
You are the physical mechanism of movement. We often externalize our business efforts, viewing our company or our investments as the vehicle, but those are extensions of your own capacity.
They're just tools.
Right. Just like a high-performance machine, your biological and psychological vehicle requires relentless tuning, maintenance, and high-octane fuel.
We're talking about the raw physiological inputs required for high-level execution. You cannot consistently execute complex problem-solving if your cognitive machinery is degraded by sleep deprivation, terrible nutrition, or chronic unmanaged stress.
It's impossible.
I hear entrepreneurs say, "I'm just too exhausted to work on my startup after my 9 to 5. They treat it as a time management problem, but structurally, it is a vehicle problem. The alternator is dead. If you refuse to maintain the physical and mental machinery, a perfect roadmap is irrelevant because you lack the horsepower to drive the route.
Exactly. And once the vehicle is optimized, we must analyze the terrain it travels on. This is the third component, your roads. We must strictly differentiate between the roadmap, which is the internal belief system, and the road, which represents the external pathway or the specific economic vehicle you choose to employ.
This is where we get into the mathematics of scale and leverage. What makes a road structurally flawed versus structurally sound?
It comes down to asymmetrical upside and the decoupling of time from income.
Okay, unpack that.
You might have completely reprogrammed your beliefs to align with rapid wealth creation, a fast lane roadmap. You might be in peak physical and mental condition, a finely tuned vehicle. But if you apply those optimized resources to a slow lane road, your velocity is mathematically capped.
Give me an example of a slow lane road limiting a high-performance vehicle.
Take an elite, highly skilled hourly consultant or a master plumber. They can optimize their hourly rate, they can work longer hours, but their economic engine is fundamentally tethered to the linear progression of time.
Because there are only 24 hours in a day.
Right. The road itself imposes a hard mathematical ceiling on their velocity. Fastlane roads, conversely, are structural pathways designed around leverage. We're talking about software architecture, writing algorithms, inventing patentable physical products, or deploying capital in real estate.
Systems that scale.
Yes. In these environments, the marginal cost replication approaches zero. You build the software once, and it can be distributed to 1 million users simultaneously without requiring additional time from the creator.
You cannot drive 200 miles per hour on a dirt road no matter how powerful the engine is. The environment dictates the maximum possible velocity, which perfectly tees up the final component of the formula, the fourth variable, your speed. In this framework, speed is synonymous with execution. Let's look at the physics of momentum. You could be strapped into a multi-million-dollar Formula One car. The engine is immaculate, the telemetry is perfect, your navigation is locked in, and you're positioned on a flawless, infinitely long straightaway. The potential energy is massive.
Yeah.
But if your foot never physically depresses the accelerator pedal, the entire system is nothing more than a static museum piece.
It's just an expensive lawn ornament.
Exactly.
Ideas represent potential energy. They're the car idling on the grid. Execution is the kinetic energy. It is the speed. The marketplace assigns zero value to potential energy.
No one cares about your idea.
No one. The concept of an execution multiplier is critical here. A brilliant, paradigm-shifting idea paired with zero execution is mathematically worthless. A mediocre derivative idea paired with relentless iterative execution generates velocity.
So action beats perfection.
Always. You can possess a flawless fast-lane roadmap, optimize your biological vehicle, and select a highly scalable software road. But if you suffer from analysis paralysis and fail to ship the product, your execution multiplier is zero. In a formula based on multiplication, any variable at zero collapses the entire equation.
This necessitates a brutal self-audit for anyone engaged in this material.
Yeah.
You have to isolate the bottleneck in your own system. Are you operating with elite execution and high energy, but applying it to a job where your income is capped by the hour? That's a road problem.
Right.
You have a scalable business model and the right beliefs, but you continually procrastinate and fail to launch. That's the execution problem. You cannot complete a high-stakes road trip on 3 inflated tires.
You really can't. And once you verify that all 4 variables are optimized, you must psychologically prepare for the texture of the road itself. The defining characteristic of the journey to wealth is not its speed, but its friction.
The bumps.
The road is unpaved, it's volatile, and it's heavily fortified by what the author describes as toll roads.
The concept of the toll road shatters the modern entitlement narrative. We are often sold a fantasy that if we just find our passion or, align our energies correctly, the universe will pave a smooth, tree-lined boulevard directly to our goals. The reality presented here is that the pathway is aggressively hostile, and passage requires a specific currency.
We must be extraordinarily precise about what constitutes a valid toll. The market is entirely agnostic to your background, your intentions, or your pedigree.
Doesn't care.
It doesn't. A prestigious Ivy League degree does not pay the toll. A supportive upbringing does not pay the toll. Securing a massive round of venture capital does not pay the toll. And, contrary to the most pervasive modern career advice, simply doing what you love does not pay the toll.
So if the market rejects all of those inputs, what currency is actually accepted at the toll booth?
The toll is exclusively paid in the currency of risk, sacrifice, and the endurance of failure. It is paid in the cognitive load of solving complex problems that others abandon. It's paid in the isolation of working through the weekend while your peer group is seeking entertainment. The friction is the toll.
This runs entirely counter to the prevailing current of modern work culture.
It really does.
We are living in the era defined by the 4-hour workweek ethos. The entire intellectual energy of a generation of entrepreneurs seems focused on finding ways to bypass friction. You hire offshore virtual assistants to handle operations. You utilize drop shipping models so you never have to physically manage inventory. You deploy AI agents to automate your copywriting. The ultimate goal is to abstract yourself away from the actual work. Is there a structural flaw in attempting to outsource the toll? Can you not simply hire a proxy to drive the vehicle through the friction for you?
If we adhere to the systemic logic of the source material, attempting to outsource the toll is a fatal architectural error.
A fatal error.
Yes. We have to distinguish between delegating specific, repetitive tasks, which is necessary for scale, and attempting to outsource the fundamental, character-forging journey of wealth creation. You cannot hire a surrogate to undergo the metamorphosis for you.
But if the operational output is the same, like if the emails are answered, the code is written, and the product is shipped, why does the identity of the person executing the task matter to the founder's ultimate success?
Because the friction is not merely an obstacle to be bypassed, it is the primary catalyst for the internal transformation we discussed earlier. The author illustrates this with a profound thought experiment regarding his own success, specifically referencing his Lamborghini.
Oh, I love this part.
He posits a scenario where, instead of enduring the grueling process of building his company over years, an anonymous benefactor magically gifted him the supercar when he was 16 years old.
The assumption being that a teenager wouldn't respect the value of the car and would likely destroy it.
It goes much deeper than simple appreciation. In psychology, there's a concept known as desirable difficulty.
Desirable difficulty.
Okay. The struggle to overcome complex obstacles forces the brain to build new, more robust cognitive pathways. By circumventing the struggle, by having the destination handed to him, he would have actively sabotaged his own developmental process.
He would have robbed himself of the growth.
Exactly. The failures, the near bankruptcies, the late nights debugging code, these are not bugs in the system, they are the forge. They temper the steel of the individual. They build the emotional resilience required to navigate market downturns. They build the analytical rigor needed to detect fraud. They build the sheer stamina required to manage complex systems.
So if you outsource the friction, you arrive at the destination as an imposter in your own life.
Precisely. You reach the elite environment, but you lack the hardened operating system required to survive there. When a macroeconomic crisis hits, or a competitor attempts a hostile takeover, the outsourced founder collapses because they never paid the toll to build their own internal fortitude.
They don't have the calluses.
Right. The wealth will either crush them psychologically or rapidly dissipate back into the market. The toll gate is a structural necessity. It filters out the fragile and rewards the resilient.
That fundamentally reframes how an entrepreneur should perceive adversity. When a critical supplier goes bankrupt, when a highly anticipated product launch fails entirely, or when a key employee resigns at the worst possible moment, the default reaction is despair.
Of course it is.
We view these events as signs that we are on the wrong path. But through this lens, the friction, the market signal that you are exactly where you need to be. The difficulty is a protective barrier. If the obstacle in front of you is incredibly painful to solve, it means your lazier competitors will turn around at this exact moment.
That's your competitive advantage.
The friction is what builds your economic moat.
It is the ultimate barrier to entry. If the process of wealth generation were frictionless and intuitively easy, the market would be instantly saturated, and the value of the reward would drop to zero. The brutality of the process is what guarantees the rarity of the destination.
This analysis forces a complete paradigm shift in how we approach the concept of success. We are forced to abandon the childish fantasy that wealth is a geographical location we can simply navigate to, or a lucky lottery ticket we might stumble upon. It is a rigorous, scientific metamorphosis of the individual.
It demands the systematic alignment of every variable. You must aggressively audit and rewrite your internal roadmap of beliefs. You must ruthlessly maintain your biological and psychological vehicle for peak performance. You must analyze the mathematics of the road you have chosen, ensuring it offers asymmetrical leverage. And you must multiply all of this by relentless, iterative speed and execution.
That's a lot.
It is. Most importantly, you must execute all of these variables while willingly absorbing the psychological and physical toll of the process.
You cannot cheat the oven. You must fall in love with the mechanics of the process, because the process is the only factory capable of manufacturing the event.
As we conclude this analysis, I want to present a final theoretical stress test for the listener to consider, building on the concept of the internal vehicle.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, checking your accounts, and discovering that your ultimate financial destination has been magically actualized. The capital, the assets, the complete systemic freedom, it is all there.
Sounds nice.
But given everything we have discussed about the necessity of the process and forging capability, ask yourself, would the current untested version of you possess the psychological infrastructure to manage, protect, and grow that reality? Or, lacking the wisdom and resilience forged by the friction of the journey, would you immediately crash the vehicle into the wall?
Wow. That is a diagnostic question that forces absolute honesty. It proves why the journey is not just a requirement, but a profound necessity. Now that we have established the physics of this road trip, the next time we convene, we will open up the glove box and unfold the specific roadmaps themselves, diving into the psychological architecture of why your current financial compass might be pointing you straight toward a dead end.
So what if making millions of dollars a year could still leave you, exactly one step away from being completely hopelessly broke?
I mean, it sounds impossible, right? But it's actually incredibly common.
It is wild. And to put this into perspective for you, let me take you back to 2015. There was this chart-topping music artist. I'm talking about a guy whose songs were playing on every radio station in every club across the entire country.
Oh yeah, he was everywhere.
Right. So this guy walks into a bank to ask for a loan. And we aren't talking about like a massive multi-million-dollar commercial loan either. He literally just wanted $60,000.
Which is, frankly, pocket change for someone at that level of fame.
Exactly, because at this exact moment in time, this artist was pulling in nearly $400,000 a month. That is almost $500,000 every 30 days.
It's just a staggering amount of cash flow.
It is. And you'd think the loan officer would just, hand him a pen, roll out the red carpet, ask for an autograph or something. But instead, the bank essentially laughed him out of the building. Denied.
Yeah.
Flat out.
Because on paper, sure, to the public, he was rich. He was like the ultimate definition of success. But in reality, the math told a completely different story.
Right. In reality, he was completely hopelessly broke. And today we're going to talk about why a massive paycheck might actually be like a one-way ticket to bankruptcy.
It really is the ultimate financial illusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned to look at the shiny exterior, the cars, the houses, the massive monthly income, and we just automatically assume there is a bedrock foundation underneath all of it.
Right. You assume they have it all figured out.
Exactly. But more often than not, especially in the culture we live in today, what you're actually looking at is just a house of cards. And it's basically waiting for, a slightly stronger than average breeze to knock the whole thing down.
Yeah. And if you want to build true wealth, you first have to recognize this. You have to recognize the most dangerous financial path on earth, one that looks incredibly glamorous on the outside, but is just rotting on the inside. So in this deep dive, we are exploring a concept from our source material called the Sidewalk Roadmap. It is basically the default financial operating system for the vast majority of society.
It's what most of us are taught to do without even realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've ever felt like no matter how much you earn, you just can't seem to get ahead, you are going to want to pay really close attention to this.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to break down how to identify if you are unknowingly trapped on this dangerous path, why the way society defines wealth is actually toxic, and most importantly, how to fundamentally rewire your mindset to step off the sidewalk and take the wheel of your financial future.
And I would argue, this is absolutely mandatory listening for anyone even remotely interested in entrepreneurship or business. Because you really cannot build a business empire or any kind of lasting legacy if your personal financial foundation is built on quicksand.
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't. The underlying mechanics of wealth, like the actual physics of how money operates in your daily life, they have to be understood at the root level before you can even think about scaling a business.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's get into the anatomy of the sidewalk. The source refers to this state of being as a sidewalker. And the defining characteristic of a sidewalker is incredibly simple, but also really alarming.
Yeah, their financial plan is to basically have no plan at all.
Right. A sidewalker exists in this perpetual, agonizing state of being what the author calls one something from broke.
And one something from broke is such a chilling phrase because of how universally applicable it is, right? Like that something can be literally anything.
Give us some examples of what that looks like in real life.
Well, for a lot of people, it's one layoff. For others, it's one unexpected medical bill or, a transmission blowing out on their only car, a sudden shift in the economy. Or, in the case of our highly paid entertainer from The Hook, one album that flops.
Wow. Yeah. So they're just completely exposed.
Totally exposed. They are living right on the razor's edge of a financial cliff. And what's really fascinating here is that this precariousness exists completely independent of how much money they actually make.
See, I really want to dig into that disconnect because it defies common sense. I mean, growing up, you always hear people say, well, if I just made $10,000 more a year, all my problems would be solved.
Well, everyone says that. I'll be fine once I get that raise.
Right. But the source material outlines the specific mathematical reality that sidewalkers live by, which proves that more income actually doesn't fix the core issue. Because, normal logic says wealth is what you save, what you invest, what you own, free and clear.
But the sidewalk wealth equation flips that entirely on its head.
It's nuts. What is that equation again?
In the mind of a sidewalker, their internal subconscious equation is wealth equals income plus debt.
Wealth equals income plus debt. I mean, that is just wild. They are literally treating a liability as an asset.
Precisely. They define their wealth by how much they can finance. Their lifestyle is dictated not just by what they earn from their job, but by the absolute maximum limit of their credit cards.
Oh, man.
Yeah, their lines of credit, their ability to secure personal loans, that's what they consider their purchasing power. And they're these specific psychological mileposts that keep a person anchored to this specific roadmap.
Okay, what's the first milepost?
The first is their perception of debt. To a sidewalker, credit is not a tool for leverage, right? It's not a mathematical instrument. It is simply a magic wand that allows them to buy things right now.
Instant gratification.
Exactly. If they want a new TV, they don't look at the actual purchase price. They only look at whether the monthly minimum payment can somehow be, squeezed out of their next paycheck.
Which completely ignores the mathematical reality of compound interest. I mean, if you are buying a $2,000 television on a credit card at, say, a 22% annual percentage rate.
It's pretty standard these days.
Right. And you're only paying the minimums. That television doesn't cost $2,000. By the time you pay it off years later, it might cost you $3,000 or $4,000.
But the sidewalker's brain just totally bypasses that long-term math in favor of the short-term dopamine hit. It's literally an instant gratification engine fueled by Visa and MasterCard.
Wow. Yeah, the dopamine hit of the acquisition completely overrides the logical assessment of the cost.
It really does. And that brings us to the second milepost, which is their perception of time.
Oh, this is a big one.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Sidewalkers operate on the fundamental belief that time is abundant, and therefore money should be spent like there's no tomorrow.
Right. The whole YOLO mindset. You only live once.
Exactly. The internal narrative is usually some variation of, hey, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, so you can't take it with you.
I hear that all the time.
Right. So any surplus money, like a tax refund, a bonus at work, maybe an inheritance, it's immediately exchanged for the latest gadget, a newer car, a trendy vacation. There is zero forward thinking. It's just this hyper-fixation on the present moment.
So giving a sidewalker more money is literally like trying to plug a hole in a dam with more water.
That's a great analogy.
The water doesn't fix the hole, right? It just rushes out faster. But, and I want to push back slightly here on behalf of you listening, isn't landing a $400,000 a month gig the ultimate dream? I mean, how is it physically possible to fail with that kind of cash?
It seems impossible until you actually break down the mechanics of how the sidewalk scales. Because
Yeah.
it scales just like a business scales, but in the completely opposite direction.
Okay, explain that. How does it scale?
Well, this is where the source material draws a very sharp, necessary line between two distinct groups.
Okay.
You have the income-poor sidewalkers, and you have the income-rich sidewalkers.
Break down the difference for us, because I think people usually only associate terrible financial habits with, low income.
All right, so the income-poor sidewalker is what we traditionally think of as living paycheck to paycheck. They make a modest or average salary. They might have all the standard middle-class toys to show for it, the finance sedans, the latest iPhones, but their bank account is perpetually hovering near zero.
Just scraping by.
Yeah, and they usually assume they just don't make enough to save anyway, so they justify not even trying. They feel so defeated by the math that they lean into the instant gratification just to feel better.
Okay, so that's the income-poor side. What about the income-rich sidewalker?
So the income-rich sidewalkers are the doctors, the corporate lawyers, the pro athletes, the actors, the chart-topping musicians. They might be making hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars a year. But, and this is the crucial part, they possess the exact same psychological mileposts as the income-poor sidewalker.
So the underlying behavior, the impulse control, the lack of forward planning, none of that changes.
None of it. The only thing that changes is the price tags and the things they're financing.
Wow. So earning $50,000 a month doesn't magically cure poor money management.
No, it just amplifies the damage. Let's go back to your opening hook about the famous rapper making $400,000 a month who couldn't get a $60,000 loan. How does that happen?
Yeah, how does the math actually break down there?
It happens because of the gross versus net illusion combined with just Exponential lifestyle creep.
Right, because when we hear 400,000 a month, our brain assumes that's what he keeps. That's his take home.
But the reality of high income is vicious. First of all, the IRS and state tax boards step in. If you're a high earner, you could be losing 40 to 50% right off the top in taxes. So that 400 grand is instantly 200 grand.
Cut in half.
Precisely. And then, especially in the entertainment industry, you have the entourage effect. You're paying an agent 10 to 15%. You're paying a manager 10 to 15%.
Right, plus publicists, stylists, security detail.
Exactly. Before this guy even wakes up in the morning, his 400,000 who shrunk to maybe 80 or 90,000 in actual usable liquidity.
Which, I mean, let's be fair, is still a ton of money.
It is a ton of money if you live like a normal person. But an income-rich sidewalker doesn't. Because their wealth equation is income plus debt, they look at that gross number, that 400 grand, and they finance a lifestyle to match that number.
Oh, man, that is so dangerous.
They buy the $5 million mansion with a monstrous mortgage. They lease 4 exotic cars. They fly private everywhere, which can cost tens of thousands of dollars per flight. They buy depreciating jewelry.
So even though they are bringing in huge money, their monthly overhead, their lifestyle burn rate is actually outpacing their income.
Exactly. So they are technically operating at a deficit every single month, despite being in the top 1% of earners.
The money outflow is a fire hose, and the money inflow is just a garden hose.
That's why he had terrible credit and 0 actual assets when he went to the bank. Everything he owned was leveraged to the hilt, and his credit was destroyed by missed payments on his massive obligations.
And then what happens when the hits stop coming?
Well, after a couple of hit songs cooled off and the income dipped even slightly, the whole house of cards collapsed. He was a textbook income-rich sidewalker.
I think this is such a vital concept because it completely shatters the myth that a higher salary is the magic bullet for financial stress.
It's the biggest lie we tell ourselves.
It is. So many of us think, oh, when I get that promotion, when I finally hit 6 figures, I'll be able to breathe. But financial discipline is entirely blind to income. If you can't live on $40,000 a year without drowning in consumer debt, you absolutely will not be able to live on $400,000 a year.
You'll just make bigger, more catastrophic financial mistakes.
Yeah, and the underlying anxiety doesn't change either, does it?
Not at all. The income-poor sidewalker lays awake at night stressing over how to make a $900 mortgage payment. The income-rich sidewalker lays awake at night sweating over a $9,000 mortgage payment. The cortisol levels are the same.
The panic is identical.
The total lack of control over their own life is identical.
So the real practical takeaway for you listening right now is that you have to brutally audit your own life and your own habits. Money does not solve money problems. It only exaggerates your existing financial character.
That is so true.
You really have to ask yourself a very uncomfortable question. Are you defining your wealth by what you have the credit limit to finance or by the actual unencumbered assets you keep? Because if it's the former, you're standing on the sidewalk and it doesn't matter how many zeros are on your paycheck.
That really is the core diagnostic test. And, to truly understand why so many intelligent, hardworking people end up trapped on the sidewalk in the first place, we have to pull back a bit. We have to look at the cultural environment.
It's societal pressure.
Exactly. We have to look at how society has completely, systematically toxified the concept of wealth.
Toxified. That's a strong word. I mean, it implies we're actively being poisoned or brainwashed without even realizing it.
We are. Society, primarily through media, advertising, relentless cultural pressure, it dictates a very specific, very toxic definition of wealth for you from the time you are a child.
Right. It tells you that wealth is a visual aesthetic.
Exactly. It's a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce. It's chartered jets, huge diamond earrings, designer clothes with massive logos, and popping bottles in VIP clubs. It is the visual illusion of having money. But true wealth, as the author points out, has absolutely nothing to do with accumulating stuff.
Okay, so how does the source define true wealth then?
True wealth is the freedom to fully experience life on your own terms. And it consists of 3 main things. Health, because obviously without it, nothing else matters. Relationships, because a life without connection is empty. And most importantly in this context, absolute freedom of your time.
Freedom of time.
Yeah, the ability to wake up in the morning and say, what do I want to do today? Rather than, what am I forced to do today to survive?
But that societal definition, the cars, the clubs, the bling it is so loud. It is everywhere you look. It's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's in every movie. We are constantly bombarded with images that equate spending money with being successful.
It is an incredibly powerful current to swim against, and it leads directly into a trap that the source calls lifestyle servitude. This is a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle that traps both the income poor and the income rich.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of lifestyle servitude. How does the trap actually spring shut?
It operates in three distinct phases. Phase one, your work creates income. You trade your time for a paycheck.
Simple enough.
Right. Phase two, you take that income and use it to create a lifestyle, usually accumulating debt to do so because of that toxic societal pressure we just talked about. You buy the bigger house, the nicer car, the designer clothes.
And then comes phase three.
Phase three, that lifestyle and the massive debt required to maintain it now forces you to go right back to work to pay for it all. And then the cycle just locks in and repeats.
So you get a raise at work, and what do? You immediately upgrade your car, but now that you have a higher car payment, you can never afford to quit the job you hate.
Exactly. You are literally working just to maintain the chains that bind you to the desk. You become a servant to your own lifestyle.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you start looking for this cycle in daily life, you start seeing the most profound, almost tragic hypocrisy everywhere.
It's everywhere.
The source material paints this incredibly vivid picture that I think perfectly encapsulates this. So imagine you are driving through a struggling part of town. You drive past a dilapidated apartment complex. The paint is peeling. The landscaping is dead. It's clearly a place where people are financially struggling.
We've all seen places like this.
Right. But sitting right there, gleaming in the parking lot of this rundown building, is a brand new, shiny $60,000 Cadillac Escalade sitting on $10,000 custom chrome rims.
It's such a stark image.
I really want you listening to ponder the absurdity of that image. The math just screams at you. 90 grand of image and maybe $2 of common sense.
It is a stark visual. But if we connect this to the bigger picture and really want to understand the sidewalker, we can't just judge it as financial stupidity.
Right, there's more to it.
We have to understand the psychological trigger behind that Escalade. It's not just a lack of financial literacy. It is a symptom of a much deeper, much more painful psychological wound.
Okay, unpack that for us, because on the surface, it just looks like terrible prioritization.
Well, the sources reference studies in consumer behavior, specifically pulling from the Journal of Consumer Research, that highlight this perfectly. The research looks at why people who have very little wealth are often the most likely to buy highly visible luxury goods.
And what did they find?
They found that when people feel powerless over their lives, when they feel like they have absolutely no autonomy, no control over their time, and they're stuck in a dead-end job with a boss who micromanages them, their brain desperately seeks a way to regain a feeling of status and control.
Ah, I see. So because they feel small and insignificant for 8 hours a day at work, they need a way to feel big and powerful when they leave.
Precisely. The $10,000 rims aren't just rims. They are a psychological bandage.
Wow.
The sidewalker feels powerless because they've surrendered their most valuable asset, their time, to an employer. So they buy a high-status, highly visible symbol that they cannot afford in order to project an illusion of power and success to the outside world. It's a coping mechanism for the misery of their daily reality.
But the cruel irony is that it's a coping mechanism that actively makes the disease worse.
It tightens the chains.
Yeah, it tightens the chains of lifestyle servitude even further. You buy the Escalade to feel powerful and escape the feeling of being trapped. But the crushing monthly debt from that Escalade ensures you remain a slave to that exact job you were trying to escape.
That is the exact paradox of the sidewalk. The very things you buy to simulate wealth are the things actively destroying your ability to ever achieve true wealth.
That is such a deep, fundamental shift in perspective. So the takeaway here for you listening is that you have to train your eye to spot the hook beneath the bait.
The hook beneath the bait. I like that.
The bait is the shiny car, the designer clothes, the instant gratification, the momentary hit of dopamine when someone looks at you at a stoplight. But the hook hidden inside that bait is the lifestyle servitude that brutally strips away your actual mathematical freedom.
You cannot let your stuff own you.
Exactly. You have to delay buying those lifestyle luxuries until you have actually built a system, a business, a scalable investment portfolio, an asset that generates true passive wealth to pay for them.
Don't sacrifice your ultimate long-term freedom for a temporary fleeting feeling of status. And This reliance on temporary fixes brings us to another massive structural psychological hurdle for the sidewalker.
Which here?
Source calls it the big hit fallacy.
Oh, this is fascinating. This is the lottery ticket mindset, right? The idea that wealth is just like a random strike of lightning.
That's a major part of it, yes.
Yeah.
Sidewalkers are absolutely obsessed with the concept of luck. Because they don't have a functional mathematical financial plan, and because they're drowning in that lifestyle servitude we just talked about, they realize on a subconscious level that their current path will never make them rich.
Right. The math doesn't add up, and they know it deep down.
Exactly. So their entire strategy shifts from a controllable process to random events. They begin to believe that wealth is an isolated event that just falls out of the sky and lands on a chosen few lucky people.
Okay, I have to jump in here and play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Because when you look out at the world, it certainly looks like a lot of wealth is just pure luck. I mean, what about the crypto boom? I know people who threw a few $1,000s into Dogecoin as a joke in 2020 and became millionaires overnight.
Sure, we all heard those stories.
Or what about guys like Mark Cuban during the dot-com boom? Didn't they just get insanely lucky with timing? They were in the right place at the right time with the right idea. How does the author's framework account for that? Is it really fair to say luck doesn't exist?
It's a great question, and honestly, it's the exact defense mechanism the sidewalker uses. But what's fascinating here is how the source material ruthlessly debunks the myth of the isolated lucky event.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's look at Mark Cuban since he's a perfect example. People love to say he just got lucky selling broadcast.com to Yahoo for billions at the peak of the bubble. But they completely ignore the decade of grueling process that preceded that event.
Right, they see the championship parade, they don't see the 5 a.m. practices.
Exactly. Luck didn't make Mark Cuban sit in a cramped apartment in his 20s, reading incredibly dense, highly technical Cisco router manuals and software networking texts deep into the night while all his friends were out drinking.
Which sounds awful, by the way.
It does. Luck didn't force him to write complicated software code in a garage at 2 in the morning. He engaged in a relentless, exhausting process of skill acquisition.
And as for the crypto example, sure, some people won the lottery there, but that is classic survivorship bias. For every guy who got rich on a meme coin, there is an invisible graveyard of thousands of people who lost their life savings on other coins that went to zero.
Exactly. You can't build a reliable life strategy on survivorship bias. The core thesis here is that wealth is a process, not an event.
A process, not an event.
Yes. The event, the $30 million company buyout, the massive IPO, the sudden viral explosion of a YouTube channel that is merely the visible public result of the process.
It's the tip of the iceberg.
The process is the struggle. It's the calculated risk, the late nights, the constant failures, the iterative learning, the repetitive, boring actions taken day after day for years in the dark.
So the event is just the tip of the iceberg poking out of the water that everyone points at, but the process is the massive hidden chunk of ice underwater that actually gives it buoyancy.
That's a perfect analogy. And here is the hard truth. Luck is merely the byproduct of engaging in a process that improves your probabilities over a long period of time.
You manufacture your own luck.
You do. You don't just get lucky sitting on your couch. You get lucky because your process puts you in the exact right place to catch the break.
And sidewalkers absolutely hate process.
They despise it because process requires discipline, it requires sacrifice, and it requires delayed gratification. Those are the exact three things the sidewalker fundamentally rejects.
Right.
This is why they desperately seek the big hit. They want the glorious event without enduring the painful process. So what do? They turn to actual lottery tickets. They go to casinos. They look for frivolous lawsuits to win a settlement. Or, and this was my favorite, they go to reality TV auditions.
Oh, man, the American Idol syndrome.
Yes.
You see people on those early audition episodes who are absolutely convinced they are going to be global superstars. And then they open their mouths and they can't even hold a tune.
It's painful to watch.
It is. They want Simon Cowell to magically discover them, but they've never put in the grueling daily process of actually taking vocal lessons, performing at empty dive bars, and learning the craft of singing. They just want the event.
Yes, and the psychological desperation for an event without a process perfectly explains one of the most enduring mysteries of modern media. The 2 a.m. infomercial.
Oh, wow, the infomercials. Think about it. Why are those get-rich-quick in real estate with zero money down commercials? Or the how to make $10,000 a week day trading programs? Why are they always on at 2 in the morning?
Because of who is watching.
From a marketing perspective, it's brilliant, but it's incredibly predatory.
It is. Who was awake at 2 a.m. watching cable television reruns? Very often it's the sidewalker. They are sitting on the couch, unable to sleep because of the financial anxiety we talked about earlier. They are deeply frustrated with their lack of wealth, and they are actively looking for a magical system.
A magic pill.
They want a cheat code that will make them millions, while, as the author jokingly puts it, working 40 minutes a week hanging upside down on a trapeze.
So they are primed and ready for someone to sell them an event.
Exactly. And the infomercial guru knows this intimately. The guru knows the sidewalker places all their faith in an event and hates process. So the guru packages up a 5 DVD set or a weekend seminar that promises the event. Just follow my 3 easy steps and the money will pour in.
But the tragic irony of the whole transaction is what?
The tragic irony is this. The real wealth isn't being made by the person buying the DVDs. The real wealth is being made by the marketer selling the system.
Wow. Just let that sink in for a second.
The marketer on the screen is engaging in a highly complex business process. They wrote a script, they hired a production crew, they bought media time, they set up a sales funnel and a fulfillment center. They are doing the hard work of process.
While the buyer sitting on the couch is just hoping for a lucky event.
That is a staggering realization, isn't it? The guru is an entrepreneur executing a process. The buyer is a sidewalker buying a lottery ticket.
So for you listening, if you want to actually build wealth, you must actively, consciously renounce the big hit as a valid financial plan. You have to completely erase it from your mental hard drive.
It has to go.
To get lucky, you have to do the unglamorous behind-the-scenes work. You have to commit to the daily grind, the process that eventually puts you directly in the path of opportunity. You have to step into the batter's box and take the swings to hit the home run. You can't just sit in the dugout complaining that the guys hitting the home runs are just lucky.
I love that. And that leads us perfectly into the final and perhaps most critical flaw of the sidewalk roadmap.
What's the root cause of all this?
Well, everything we've talked about so far, the bad math, the lifestyle servitude, the lottery mindset, all of it stems from one root cause. The source material refers to it as the danger of hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking. Okay, I love the visceral analogy the author uses here because it really makes you feel the vulnerability of the sidewalker's position.
It really does.
Imagine you decide you want to travel across the country, right? From New York to California. But instead of driving yourself, you decide to hitchhike. You stand on the side of the highway and slip your thumb out. Now, sure, you might eventually make it to your destination. Someone might pick you up and drop you off exactly where you want to go.
It's possible.
It's possible. But you also might climb into a car with an absolute psycho who takes you on a horrific detour, leaves you stranded in the desert, or drives you right off a cliff.
Exactly. The physical sensation of hitchhiking is one of absolute vulnerability. Think about what it feels like to be in the passenger seat of a car going 80 miles an hour down the highway, being driven by a total stranger. You have no steering wheel. You have no brake pedal. You are entirely at the mercy of their skill, their intentions, and their reactions to the road.
It's a state of high anxiety. You'd be hyper-vigilant the entire time. So the author asks a really profound question. If we would never trust a stranger with our physical safety on a highway, why do we treat our financial lives like a hitchhiker treats a highway?
Because hitchhiking, financially speaking, is the ultimate abdication of responsibility. It's just easier.
It's the path of least resistance.
Right. A sidewalker delegates their entire financial destiny to external forces. They refuse to take the driver's seat. Instead, they hand the keys of their life over to their boss, to the promises of the corporate ladder, to the unpredictable swings of the stock market, to the overall economy, or to the government.
And when you aren't driving, you can't steer around the potholes. If your company decides to downsize to boost quarterly profits, you get laid off. You had no control. You were just a passenger in their car.
Precisely. And this relinquishing of control leads to a state of absolute, unadulterated victimhood. Because the sidewalker isn't in control when things inevitably go wrong when the car crashes, they never look in the mirror.
It's never their fault.
Never their fault because they weren't driving. They were laid off because the boss was a jerk. They are broke because the macroeconomic environment is bad. They have crippling debt because the credit card companies are predatory.
They are living their entire lives under a dark, heavy cloud of they did this to me. They are keeping me down. They aren't paying me enough.
Yes, it is a mindset defined by externalizing the locus of control. Now, the source text delves into a very specific manifestation of this, which they call the politics of hitchhiking. and it's an interesting psychological framework to examine.
Let's get into it.
The author argues that individuals who seek the easy life, who want the rewards without the grueling process, often turn to the political system as their ultimate chauffeur.
Right. And just to be totally clear on the author's premise here for our listeners, this isn't about left versus right politics, and it's not a critique of the necessity of social safety nets for people who truly need them. The author is simply critiquing the mindset of the individual who uses the government as their primary strategy for wealth accumulation.
Exactly. We're strictly talking about locus of control here. A financial hitchhiker will vote for whichever politician promises them the most external salvation, whether that's free healthcare, free gas, free mortgages, or canceled debts.
It's the desire for a bailout.
Yes, the underlying psychology is the belief that I cannot fix my own life, therefore the state must fix it for me. If you are sitting on your couch waiting for a politician to pass a law to make you wealthy or secure, you are a hitchhiker standing on the side of the road in the rain, waiting for a savior who is never going to come.
You are willingly embracing victimhood because you have surrendered your power to an external entity.
It's giving up before you even start the engine.
So, what does this all mean? If that's the diagnosis, what is the cure? How do we break free from this victimhood and get off the sidewalk for good?
The cure is the hardest pill to swallow. Extreme, uncompromising ownership. The author states a powerful, unbending law of wealth. You cannot be a victim if you never hand over the keys to someone capable of victimizing you.
Wow. Let that sit for a second. You cannot be a victim if you never hand over the keys.
If you control your own income source, meaning you own a business, you own scalable assets, and if you control your own financial education, you cannot be victimized by a sudden corporate layoff.
Because you are the corporation?
Exactly. If you don't carry consumer debt, you cannot be victimized by interest rate hikes from a predatory credit card company. You have to stop hitchhiking. You have to force yourself into the driver's seat of your own life, grip the steering wheel, and accept total crushing responsibility for every single financial outcome you experience, good or bad.
It is a harsh truth, and it's scary because it means you have no one left to blame but yourself. But it's also incredibly liberating. It is the only truth that actually leads to freedom. You can't control the global economy. You can't control inflation. But you can absolutely control how you react to it, how you prepare for it, and the systems you build to insulate yourself from it.
That's it, exactly. And if we synthesize everything we've unpacked today about the sidewalk roadmap, the fake wealth equation, the lifestyle servitude, the lottery mindset, the hitchhiking, we arrive at one very clear, deeply memorable insight.
Lay it on us.
The absolute soul of the sidewalk is the sacrifice of tomorrow for the fleeting, momentary pleasure of today. It is a roadmap where your vehicle runs entirely on hope, blame, and instant gratification. It is driven by someone else, and it's heading straight toward a dead end.
Man, it's a chilling summary, but it's exactly the wake-up call so many people need. But here is the ultimate twist for you listening. What happens when you finally wake up? What happens when you realize the sidewalk is a dead end? You rip up your credit cards, you get out of the passenger seat, and you decide to start acting responsibly by society's standards.
Oh, that's when it gets really tricky.
Yeah, because you might just find yourself stepping into a completely different trap. One that proudly asks you to trade 5 days of your life for 2 days of freedom, hoping that if you clip enough coupons, skip enough lattes, and save enough pennies, you'll finally be rich just in time to be sitting in a wheelchair. But how to survive that trap well, that's a deep dive for another day.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.